TruthSeekah and/or its affiliates are not responsible for any strange phenomena that may occur during or after listening to this podcast, which may include the following: heightened senses of awareness, psychic abilities, UFO sightings, alien contact, time loss, out-of-body experiences, ringing in the ears, ESP, lucid dreaming, increased synchronicities, astral projection, telepathy, stronger intuition, levitation, miraculous healings, and/or remote viewing. Please be advised to listen at your own discretion.
Won't you come and take me away? I just wanna be with you. Won't you come and take me away? To a place to walk on troubled seas, faith to stand when I don't believe. I just wanna be with you. Won't you come and take me away? I just wanna be with you. Won't you come?
You are now locked into the TruthSeekah Podcast.
Gargoyles! Psychics! Everything's ungodly! Dark Savage!
Streaming live at TruthSeekah.com.
She's not a Christian!
Give it up, y'all.
Your portal to the paranormal, esoteric, and all things spiritual.
She's tampering in dark Savage stuff!
And now, your host, TruthSeekah.
Ladies and gentlemen, what's up? I'm your host, TruthSeekah. This is the TruthSeekah Podcast, and excited and delighted to be with you guys today. We got an awesome show planned for you. Good discussion we're going to get into, discussing all things spiritual and esoteric and metaphysical and everything that you just heard in that intro. We're going to try to discuss every bit of that stuff. It's going to be good. I got a great guest lined up for today. I can't go any further without saying thank you to everybody who is supporting my work via Patreon. You guys are the enablers. This show does not exist without you, so thank you for allowing me to create this art and bring it out there and share it with the world. You guys are awesome. Special shout out to some of the newest patrons within the last week or two. Shout out to, personally, Dustin Kumar. Thank you, Dustin. David Huffman. Kroll Earnings. Tell me how to pronounce that word. Angel. Regaldo, Susie, Lapner, Shawnee, Benz. Thank you guys for coming on and supporting the work. Special shout out to Noah. Special shout out to Adam Brink. And special shout out to Benny and his family for donating at the diamond body level. You guys mean the world to me. Thank you, really, from the bottom of my heart. You are the enablers. Thank you. If you would like to give, if you would like to support the show, head on over to patreon.com/TruthSeekah. There you get access to my entire discography of work, 10 plus albums. You get access to the Thursday night School of the Mystics, which we do every Thursday. It's the teaching, it's the community, it's the hands-on part of this podcast. If you resonate with this show, the guest, what we bring to the table, make sure you join us on Thursday nights at the School of the Mystics. You get access to that for as little as $1 a month and all that cool stuff. Also get access to our private Facebook group and our Discord chat, which Discord's always popping. This is our daily thing. We do this every day. It's not just Tuesday and Thursday when we go live. Throughout the week, we're building, we're lifting up each other in prayer and encouragement and things like that. So make sure you join us, man. It's a whole community, a lot of like-minded people. So patreon.com/TruthSeekah. And I'm going to go ahead and bring on today's guest. This is Tait Zinszer. Is that how you pronounce it?
Sure is, buddy.
Brother, I want to say thank you for supporting my work as well, man. You've been a patron for several months as well, believing in my work, helping support it financially. Brother, thank you publicly for supporting my work as well.
You're welcome, Derek. You're awesome, man. Keep up the good work, man. Straight up, man.
Thanks, man. We're going to get it in today, man. There's a lot of stuff to talk about, a lot of stuff we have in common. Part of your story is where you started off at, which is a great place to start, talking about coming out of the Christian church, being a minister, being a servant, someone who is, agreeing with that whole doctrine and ideology, and like to talk about that mindset that it gives you, and then what you have to kind of break free from in the end, and those things, and hear about your journey, because there's a lot of people there. There's a lot of people listening who are still in church, a lot of people wanting to come out or to feel like God, the Creator's calling them out of church, but not away from their relationship with Christ. You know what I'm saying? That's a weird thing to rationalize or to kind of make sense of. It's like, because the church realm will try to tell you that because you don't go to church, you're not a part of the church, which that's a lie, right? And so what that does to you psychologically, man, when people push you out and stuff, and then coming, on your own and finding out who you are, what you are, bringing that to the table, man. That's your story. That's my story. And a lot of people listening, bro. I want to tackle that today. So welcome to the show again. And if you want to go ahead and give people a little bit of background about who you are and what you bring to the table, man, let's start there.
Okay, man. Thanks, man. And it's 11/11.
11/11 on September the 11th.
Love you guys. Straight up. Anyhow, pretty much spent most of my life, like a lot of us did in the 70s and 80s, kind of living it up, living it out. High school dropout at 15. Lived a hell of a life up until the point when I was pretty much saved by God from my own misery at the age of 21. And soon after that, I spent about the next 16 years in the church, very devoted. Back in the late 90s, I mean, it was pretty awesome. It was the What Would Jesus Do movement and Jesus Fish and all that stuff. Everything was labeled, and it was actually very trendy. So I got hooked up into that. And as a musician, I was pretty much wrapped up in most praise and worship teams I was at, Big Buddies program, Gospel for Asia, Compassion International, raising support for kids. Kind of really spent a lot of time in church in the late 90s, meaning Sunday mornings, Sunday nights, Wednesday nights, Friday night, singles groups. It was pretty much all I did, while all the rest of my friends were still living their life, going to jail, drinking and doing a lot of things that I kind of removed myself from. So it was different, but I was the one who was actually bringing them to church. And sometimes it was a pretty awesome experience to take some people that you wouldn't imagine going. And I had just enough pull to get them there. So God used me in those points. And
did you keep any of them there?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I personally didn't, that,
yeah.
But I got them in the door. It was a time where, even I used to go, before I met my wife and stuff like that, I used to go to the rescue missions, and I'd actually pull up in front of the rescue mission Sunday mornings in my 88 IROC, and I just fill my car up, whoever can get in, and take them to church. After church, I was that guy taking the homeless person that walked in for lunch. Pretty much, even though I was slightly righteous because of the program I tapped into and the people I was hanging out with, I always had the heart. And when people needed help, when they needed people that either had deeper issues and stuff like that, I was usually the one that they called to kind of come in, because I don't know, they consider me the messy person, more or less. Not messy as in a living, but messy as in background.
Yeah.
That I was able to deal with and relate a lot more to people that were really in dire straits. So with all those years put in, it was, I was plugged in for good, and it felt good, but it's strange because the few years prior to more or less being removed from religion permanently, which was around 2012, 11, I just felt dry, man. I was doing everything I could. I mean, missions trips, like I said, I would do at Promise Keepers. I would do child sponsorship with Compassion, or
Choir to Fire, any of that stuff.
Yeah. I was the guy behind the booth, getting children sponsored. Even the one day at my small church of like 115 people, the one Sunday we had 8 kids sponsored. And when Gospel for Asia got back to me, they were like, "This is like unheard of in in such a small body.
Wow.
I kind of flaked out. I was talking to Derek prior to being on here, get a little nervous. Always been a performer. So it's kind of funny that I put myself in that situation, being a little uncomfortable in front of crowds, but kind of just dropped some James on the people at church, and some other scriptures that were really hard for me to actually look people in the face and say it. And I was shaking. I swore I was going to pass out at the moment. But at the end of the day, there was 8 kids sponsored, and all glory to God. I mean, I was just so excited about it. So it's sometimes we get in those situations where it's not easy to kind of put the fire in people's hearts. But I've always been that person. And I appreciate God using me like that. 'Cause it's never easy. But in the end, I feel stretched. I feel better because of it. So that kind of takes you up to my experience within the body at the time. But I mean, I was fully active. Like I said, I mean, big buddy programs, praise and worship, missions. And like I said, I mean, weekly, I would go to 2 or 3 or 4 different churches in my town just to be a part of the body, whether we were handing out free Christmas trees or walk around neighborhoods, praying with people and stuff like that. So I was well rooted back in the day.
It's like a good foundation.
Yeah, it was. And I would say this, man, it's like I struggle with Christians now.
Me too.
Well, I do and I don't, meaning that I love everyone. So I can't put anybody below me with that. It just, I know where I came from. I know what I learned, and I came through it. And it's one of those things that I've accepted. And it's not something I expect everybody else to accept. And when I sat in church, I mean, 90 to even higher percentage are pew sitters. You know, fear death, fear God. They're not going to do much more than show up every Sunday. And that was the thing that kind of really always drove me nuts in the body. Not many people working. Everybody's just kind of showing up just so they can be part of the club. And that just drove me crazy.
What was your initial salvation experience? Did you?
Nice. You're gonna go there already, aren't you? Are you talking how I got saved?
Yeah. How you you got faith in Christ?
Put, I love this story, and I'm sorry for my kids while they're watching this video. Mine was unique because did a lot of hardcore drugs. Never breached heroin. A lot of drugs back in the day, but didn't go that far. Not that what I did was good. I actually was on LSD one night when I was 21 years old. And I had a Paul experience where I was in my apartment by myself and no windows were open or doors were open or anything like that. And wind came through my house. Like I'll never forget. It was on a back end of an abortion with a girlfriend. And I kind of hit a spot where I did so many things wrong in my life. I hit that point where it was the first time in my life I didn't feel like I had the right to make that decision. I made a lot of mistakes, but I didn't feel like I had the right to give to take away life. And it just shocked my whole being. I was one of those people, even before I found God, that kind of living a life. But when I drove home from these parties and these events late at night, 3 o'clock in the morning, I'd be slumped over my steering wheel crying. You know, I couldn't figure it out. Always looking for something. But, I grew up, I mean, I can call myself a Satanist, but I mean, we do all kinds of crazy stuff. King Diamond was my favorite band back in the day. A lot of wicked stuff I would entertain, and I did not respect God whatsoever. Not whatsoever. So when I got hit with that unveiling that night, it was almost just like the Paul. And, I don't really follow the Pauline teachings anymore. But it was like the scales were ripped off. Like the reality was so real. I was just so taken back. I couldn't get to church quick enough or to God quick enough. I was just like, somebody tell me, somebody help me, because I've been touched and I don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
But for some reason now the reality is real, and I was moved mightily.
So you felt that mighty rushing wind come through. Did you feel the euphoria, like the Holy Spirit, like you would feel in church and stuff like that? Yeah,
I did. but I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
First time occurrence, you know what I mean? So I was kind of overwhelmed, but I knew that something was way bigger than me, and I was willing to find out what it was. And after literally kicking it for 20 years and denouncing it and being away from it, God said, "That's enough, my son." And it was a humbling experience, but it was my wake up call. And, you know, the people that were around me, ex-girlfriend I even went back to at the time, and she was like, "Nope, don't want to hear anything about it."
Yeah.
And I'm just like, "Well, then I'm going this way because whatever it is, it's calling me." So it was huge healing. And, you know, back in the day, I was taught through other Christians that were closest to me and stuff like that. You know, you're born again and all that stuff, you know, wasn't of you, and you're a new creation in Christ. You're not responsible for that. And, you know, for many years in the church, I did kind of, it wasn't me. I didn't take credit for it. Yeah. The best part that happened once I became enlightened and moved into the spiritual movement, I don't really like using that word too much, but just was the fact that I started going back and being responsible for everything I didn't think I was. The bullying, the just outright ignorance, the way I treated people, I had to be accountable for it. And what I realized later in life was the karma that I suffered through. As a Christian or as an unbeliever? As a Christian. Yeah. I know, right? That's a whole nother revelation in itself, right? Suffered, man. Suffer. I got in a fight the one time when I first got married. Some guy hit our car and I don't fight anymore. Like the last time I fought, I was like 18, 19. So I'm not running around fighting people. But anyway, some guy hit our car and I jumped out of the car because he was trying to flee a scene and he couldn't get out. And so he came up to me, knocked me out cold, unconscious. I woke up. They wouldn't even call an ambulance because there's a thing in our town called Music Fest. So they just thought it was a drunk brawl. Well, I was playing pinochle with my mom that night. I didn't even drink. So more or less what I'm trying to say is I stood up, got in my wife's car, sat there, and I reflected on the time that I beat someone up in gym class with a baseball bat. And I was like, fair enough, let's get to the hospital. So I'm just saying there's just key points in my life that, you know, I had to walk through it. You can't escape it. You'd be a fool to actually run away from it. It's all fair. And actually it makes you who you are. And I'm glad for it. And that's what I mean. About 4 or 5 years ago, I felt like that cycle finally leveled out, stopped, and I'm outside that realm. Yeah. Well, I don't deal with the karmatic part of life anymore. Let's if we're looking at if there's somebody watching who's a Christian, they're in church, and you would think that Christianity is like the pinnacle of devotion, of doing good works, of creating good karma, you know, putting out good stuff out there, you know, and even what we call the sanctification process of this inward cleaning out, making amends with the past and stuff, and deliverance ministry and all this stuff that's kind of wrapped in with Christianity. In spirituality, you went deeper than what you was introduced to. Like, hey, Jesus got your past. It's all good. Give it to him. Like when you got into more of the spirituality, you went deeper as far as making amends with the past and speaking healing to that inner child 100%. And stuff like that. Wasn't even close. Yep. And let me make one point about the being saved, finding God on microdose, LSD. What I realized back in the day was God meets us exactly where we're at. It took a long time to realize that. And a lot of people don't think God will go to the trenches or God will go to the slums. God is the trenches. God is the slums. He delivers, period. So with that being said, it's like, you know, the scariest point after that was kind of what you're just mentioning, was actually leaving the church. And I had enough experiences with the Holy Spirit and God in my life that I didn't want to lose that. And I was scared that, you know, by seeking, like Jesus asked us to, I was curious, I guess you'd say, that, you know, how's this going to work for me now? Because I'm kind of outside the bounds. But yet I see it all over the place that we were meant to actually not as much be taught as we were to seek ourselves. Mm-hmm. Because when you're taught, you learn man's ways, no matter if it's good pastor or not. I mean, I watched Charles Stanley through and through and through and through. I watched them a couple months ago, and I was totally disgusted by the message that I used to enjoy, because one of the messages was someone that wasn't a Christian or didn't receive Jesus as their savior. If they were talking to a God, it's not God. Yeah. And I was like,
yeah, I know, right?
I was just like, okay, because think about it, how many different faiths and religions all over the world. And so anyway, it was just one of those things that I had to come out from, and all the better for it. But it hasn't been easy. I'm just glad I'm to the point where I am right now.
Yeah.
I'm very sensitive person. So it wasn't exactly easy, but I had to keep kind of,
you go through a dark night. I'm sure you went through a dark night. I mean, I definitely did. Like,
oh God,
like you're talking about doing drugs and being a wicked, evil person, and all the demons and all the negativity that's surrounded with that. I was into like really dark witchcraft and making pacts with spirits and stuff as well. Mm-hmm. I got possessed, was in a really crazy place, losing my mind, all of that stuff. When I was coming out of Christianity, as far as like in that transition of being someone who's known and people love. I mean, you too, you're in worship bands, you're doing evangelistic work and all of this kind of stuff. And now you're falling away if you let them tell it, So,
yeah, sure.
Being somebody who, everybody liked and loved versus on the other side, now you're asking too many questions. You're getting into Gnosticism. You think everybody goes to heaven. If you say anything that goes against what they believe, you get a target on your back. I went through like the dark night. Coming out of that was almost darker than going through the demonic possessions and stuff that I went through as a teenager. Of just, everybody forsaking you, all your friends, your people look up to you. Now they're calling you a devil worshiper, all this kind of crazy stuff.
Oh,
you had to put up with that too, right?
Heretic, wolf, whatever.
Heretic, yeah, all that, man.
They're singing the songs still today. I say, I still hear them screaming, "Crucify him." You know what I mean? So yeah, it's one of those moments where you gotta choose God or the people, man. I chose God.
Yeah, so you would say that God called you out.
Sure did, man.
God. You followed God. You didn't just mess up and get into wickedness or get into occult material and you got lost in it. You say that the Holy Spirit, God, Christ, led you down the path that you're on, right?
That book right there changed my life forever. It's amazing too. What I held up was the shack.
There we go.
When you take God and make him a black woman, it changes everything. In its simplicity, I sat there nights reading that book, just crying. That's it right there. That's what moved me towards Gnosticism and everything else, because I had so many chains and restrictions on God. Picturing the man in the seat, the white Anglo, the white man in the chair, sitting in his seat, holding his hand over the people and stuff like that. And when I read a book that kind of turned everything upside down, it didn't matter what was really written in the book. It was my heart that received it. And I just sat there and literally cried for days, because I just couldn't believe that I put such limitations on God and had an ideal that man created within my mind that I followed. And everything just broke and fell apart. And that's what I had left, and I really didn't know where to go. So I kept working at it and learning. And the Nag Hammadi scriptures followed closely behind. The Colburn really blew my mind. They started building everything, but most importantly, I'm a Hermetic today. So the teachings of Hermes really enhanced my Christian beliefs, honestly.
That's the crazy thing too, is when those other beliefs maybe even solidify some of the deeper, you know what I'm saying, truths are there. Because I think in Christianity, we think that that's all original. Most of the stuff that Paul and Jesus were quoting, like, there was nothing original. Like, most of the time they're quoting the Old Testament. And then when we get in deeper, the Old Testament, a lot of that stuff's quoting other works from the other nations who were around at that time as well, as far as the architecture, the quotes, the wording, the stories, all of that stuff. So to go back to find something that solidifies that truth even deeper, reading the 7 Hermetic principles and then reading the scriptures. And there's essences that you pick up on. They're like, man, okay, that's a universal law. The Bible's saying it. This is saying it. That's saying it. Okay, yeah, they're all in agreement yep. with different wording, different phrasing, but the spirit and essence is there.
Yep. The same with Mike had to help me with this term here, the Bhagavad Gita.
Bhagavad Gita, yeah, Bhagavad Gita, yeah. Well, in the Vedas, yeah.
Blown away, man. Christ before Christ, Jesus before Jesus. It just, I read it and I was totally amazed on what I received from it. So, and that's my whole thing. God is universal. The way you see God, the way I see God, the way those listening right now see God, it's seriously personal. There is no 2 people that see God the same. Mm-hmm. Even in church of 500 people who hear the same message every week and go by the same doctrine, everybody has a little twist to their faith that the other person can't understand or doesn't see eye to eye on. So, it's the fact that people... What bothers me on that is that people feel like they can tell you how to believe, how to see God, and how to worship God. That I don't understand anymore. And don't get me wrong, Derek, I was there, dude. I was that guy after getting up at 7:38 to go do worship rehearsal before church in the morning. And if I saw someone jogging along the side of the road, I would be ripping them apart. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I was self-righteous and legalistic myself. And I'm glad I was, because honestly, it has my mouth shut now. And I don't say much because I was there and I remember.
Well, that's what I want to ask you too, because one of the things, I've got a friend of mine who's given his life over to Christian evangelism. Like, he's like determined to win his whole city to Jesus, right? And he's doing a really good job at trying to do that. That's what God's called him to do. That's his passion. And I'm friends with him. He doesn't agree with what I do, but we talk about being a universalist. Or you say you do? Thank you, sir.
I love your artism.
If we talk about being a universalist, right? There's this: if God's gonna save everybody, right? If you even believe that, and that can maybe get complicated, because there's even. The whole hell concept was stolen anyway from other traditions as well. So, but the majority of Christendom believes in hell, or claim they do. This the lake of fire, eternal punishment. Being a universalist, or one saying that Jesus died for everybody or God loves everybody, it takes away the urgency to win the lost. Like, these people are lost. We have to win them. And there's an urgency, because if they die tomorrow, they're going to perish and burn forever. Being a universalist, and I've listened to early Carlton Peterson stuff, and even listened to the Christian evangelists who are against Jesus dying for everybody, because they know that it's going to silence them. It like takes away their only thing. Not that God's goodness can lead men to repentance, but God's wrath and God's anger that he wants to destroy you type deal. And so with God saving or God loving everybody, they say it takes that away. It doesn't. If you approach even the gospel from a universalist point of view, it's not something that God is going to do or Jesus is going to do, but he's already done. And we're just here to proclaim the wonderful work of what Christ has already done for everybody. So that there's still the urgency there that people are now living in hell. They're not going to live in hell. They're now living in hell. And we have the ticket to get them out now, not later. But you just said, to kind of go with that notion a little bit, that it kind of silenced you a little bit of your evangelistic approach, because obviously you came from that. It's me too. I don't want to debate. I don't want to judge. I don't want to point fingers, because I used to do that. So there's that reminding of the nasty old Christian that I once was. But obviously it hasn't silenced you that much. You're writing books. You're still getting information out about God, the idea of God. Where are you now with wanting to tell people about God? I mean, heck,
Well, a real important point is that with when I came out the back end of this, I realized when I was a Christian actively involved in the church, everything that went bad was Satan's fault. Everything that was good was God. When I came out of that, Satan doesn't exist to me, man.
Yeah.
Gone from my map. And you know what? It's true, man. You know where Satan was the whole time? Right inside me, man.
You had the opportunity to play him.
Yeah. So when I realized that and started working on that part of me, I stopped blaming things that were supposedly outside of me, like I didn't have control of. And you know what? I have a lot more control in my life these days, via God, of course, because I live for God. And my witness is, I have the books, of course, that's great. But my witness is my personality, my character.
Your life. My
life, man. And I do. I'm in there. I'm doing it. I took the same things that I enjoyed. We still sponsor kids from one child from Compassion for over 15 years now. In Peru, my wife's from Peru, so that's a cool connection. We sponsor families out on the res in South Dakota, Pine Ridge Reservation. A grandmother raising 7, 8 kids, grandchildren of her own, with her kids in the house too. So I took and that's the really cool part, man. I used to pay for heating and electric at a church and bills out of body, you know what I mean? And then of course they do take money towards missions and people going away and public things. I don't want to take away from that.
Yeah.
But every month now, man, my money just goes direct to the needs of the people, period. And I don't need other people to tell me what the needs are because I have a good enough heart to look for them, and I found them.
That's a revelation in itself, and the freedom that you get from, like, okay, the money that I would spend on tithe, because it just kind of goes to the building fund or the playground at the church. I mean,
you have to pay the mortgage, you have to pay the pastor, you have to pay the secretaries, and then it gets down to the bottom, and those needs are sometimes met. And I don't want to take away from that.
No. I'm just saying, if you was to take that money that you paid.
No, I know. Think about it. Close every church this Sunday. Close all of them. And that money that all the people would have spent, put it on a table and let it go out to the world, to the needs of the people. It would be solved in one day.
It's just a deep revelation, or just like and I'd encourage people to do this. If you're paying tithes, if you're funding a ministry or something, maybe 1 month. If you want to keep doing that, that's good. Like I said, but they should make it. If we don't, this money goes towards bills. If you enjoy the building, you enjoy what we have here, it takes money. So that is legit. But take that money yourself and maybe go out to eat and pay for a couple who are just sitting down across from you on the other side. You don't even know. They don't even know that you're going to pay for their meal. Like we started doing that and just doing practical stuff. Like, hey, we can actually see where our money is going out and impacting people now. We can fund other people's ministry or whatever the case is. And it's not we're writing a check to the church. And you do share a part in that, because whatever that church is doing, you're a part of it. So you're a body there. But when you can personalize it, man, it was just like I never had $50 extra to go out to eat and say, hey, I'm going to buy these people's meal and not even tell them that I did it. We're just going to walk out and, you know what I'm saying? And pray over it. You know what I'm saying? Hopefully God will, you never know. Like that could be that couple's like last $50 that they wanted to go out and eat and spend time together. And now it's taken care of. It could be an answered prayer. I've seen God do that in my life, and being obedient with listening and asking God what you should do with your money, right? Versus just, here's that damn check again. Let's write it.
One of the funny experiences I always remember in my head was there was a section in my city where the people would stand. Well, it wasn't a normal corner. I think that's why it kind of caught me off guard. But I gave my last $20 to him, and I had to go to my mom's house to get money from her because I had no money for gas. So it's just like I'm always living in the moment, man. If somebody's needs more important than mine, I'm there. You know what I mean? Actually, they are, because I with my wife and kids, bro, I have everything.
Yeah,
I'm blessed beyond blessed. I have no needs whatsoever. So it's easy for me to look outside. and see the needs of the people.
Yeah.
And that's why with my wife and I, we look into the youth. We sponsor 3 Native American schools, St. Joseph's, Red Cloud, and St. Labre out in South Dakota and Wyoming, Native Hope. I have a connection with Standing Rock, getting out there and stuff like that.
Yeah,
And,
I know your whole story.
that was a big part of it too, bro. And back in 2011, 2012 was when I literally found out about the Native Americans and their plight and what we did to them. And I never realized.
Wow.
And that's one of my, with the Great Spirit. And when I went out there and realized that they're serving the same God, man, and they don't call him Jesus. You know what I mean? And the Great Spirit's upon them, beautiful people. Well more evolved and advanced than most of us Europeans are mentally with their thinking, you know. So it just changed me, man. It was
a big part of my awakening too, is going back to the powwow. But when I first got saved, I went to the powwow. They're chanting on drums and acting like chickens and got feathers on, and I'm like very sensitive because I just came out of witchcraft, right? And I go to that, I'm like, oh, I gotta get up out of here, man. These demons out here. And it's so weird how your perception changes. Like I went there, like, man, they're chanting the gods and invoking spirits of the chickens and stuff. You know, I was like, we got to get up out of here. And then I went back several years later when God started doing a deeper work in me, and I'm going there and I'm just in tears and feel the Holy Spirit moving through the air and just bringing me to tears and showing me this is all they have left. It's just like this one day a year where we get to share it with them and open it up. But man, these people were loving, peaceful people that were overtaken, and man, just the whole spirit of that. But that was a big point of my awakening. But before we get too far off, because I know we're not off, everything we're touching on is good. But let's get back to the whole phase of exiting the church, because you read The Shack. So, and I wanted to say about The Shack, there's a lot of churches that were actually backing that book and promoting it, but then there was a whole pushback from the Christian community, another side, saying that it would lead you into other faiths, or it would do to you, it would do to other people what it did to you. So there were people warning people to stay away from it. Yeah, sure. You read The Shack, you got into the other scriptures, other texts, you started seeing God in everything. How did that start coming out in your speech to get a target on your back and things like that, to kind of be like, we don't want you here anymore type deal in church?
Well, the book you held up, The Word of Gnosis, I started in 2011. So in early 2012, I started going to a new church, and it's kind of ironic because the sound person was an atheist. They would open up with Bob Marley or Tom Petty, hats, piercings all over the place, different colored hair. Yeah. It made me feel at home. But yeah, it wasn't what I was used to. So this is the body I was in at the time that I got pretty much asked to leave. So what I did and what I wanted people to know was I was blessed by the Colburn. When people ask me, no, people don't ask me. When I tell people my house is on fire, grab one book. What book would it be? It's the Colburn. It blew me away. Egyptian Academics 1500. It actually tells about the Egyptian side of the Exodus. And that also goes into the Druids, early, maybe 200 to 500 AD, CE. And the book itself was hidden for many, many years. So when I read it, I wanted people to know about it. So I put it in the Word of Gnosis in pieces, along with Enoch, Revelation, the Epic of Gilgamesh, and Hermes Palmagras. But I wanted people to know the Colburn. It didn't seem like it was known. So my first version of the Word of Gnosis was literally the Bible size. And I did create it like a Bible with a lot of Jesus throughout. But I pulled a lot of the Colburn out, hopefully to get people's eyes open to the book. I guess there's still maybe some controversy about the book itself, where it came from. I mentioned to you, I've been in and out of Freemasonry. But one of the reasons why I got into Freemasonry was because supposedly for 800 years, the Freemasons protected the book, if I understand the story correctly. And it made me very interested because I felt like I owed somebody some gratitude for preserving the book for me, without it being destroyed like so many other books in history. So the Colburn was a huge part of.
So while you were in church, you were just writing the book. You wasn't being vocal. You wasn't going to Bible studies.
Not so much. The only thing was, like, I was changing my Bibles. I had the original Bible, like the first Bible. You know what I mean?
With 1611.
What do you say?
The 1611 Bible? Or
I have it on my shelf, but I don't want to run away.
What are you talking about with the Apocrypha in it?
Is it the Anderson Bible or something like that?
I'm not sure.
It has a lot of the. I know some people listening probably are saying it out loud right now.
Yep, it's not the Apocrypha in it with the 12.
Let me go get it. It is important. Hold on one second.
Very important to know the original Bible. There's a bunch of them. I've got the 1611. I do have that, which the 1611 version has the 14 books that were taken out and considered the Apocrypha. So,
sorry, I'm back.
Which
one?
Sinaiticus. Okay.
You ever hear of it?
Heard of it. Don't know much about it though.
But the thing was, it has the Epistle of Barnabas in it and the Shepherd of Hermes, the teaching of the 12.
You talking about the Gospel of the Holy 12?
Yeah. So I started going to church and Bible studies with something different. And I laid down on the table and people started looking at me different. So I kind of slowly did it without being
over.
Yeah. I definitely wasn't pushing anything on anybody. I was curious on how it related and if I could sit down with a different book and get the same message or have the same message. So it has all the original books of the Bible, but it has, like the Catholic Bible, more or less the other texts, the original texts that were in. So this supposedly is the original New Testament. And it was times like those that I slowly started kind of evolving. But like I said, it wasn't, I don't know.
Where did the contention come from? Once the book was out or what?
Yeah, well, what happened was, it's so strange because the pastor I was with at the time did end up dying from cancer, and I was serving him. He had plenty of people to help him, and the only reason why I say that is because I had my left kidney removed through many surgeries, and I show up at praise and worship with JP drains out my back, literally stuck in my cargo pants. And if you looked, you'd see the blood kind of going through the tubes and stuff. And I'd be in praise and worship on Sunday, and I'd be up there on stage playing my bass. Very much part of the whole. I didn't want to be removed from my ministry. And with that, I was serving the pastor because he was going through chemo and he was pretty young, somewhere around 50, 55. And I was part of his Bible study at his house, and it was a small group. So more or less, he had another gentleman taking me out to lunch to talk to me about my book, kind of privately behind my back. And I caught on to it after the second meeting. At first, the guy made it sound like he was interested in what I was writing, but then I started listening. I love it
when they do that. Hey, man, what's that new book you got?
Yeah, so more or less, they used this other guy to kind of gauge what I was doing, because I gave it to the pastor because I wanted to be real with him. I said, here's my book, check it out. Let me know what you think. So I was being upfront, wasn't trying to hide anything. I even had designers working with me for a book of Enoch that I was going to be doing myself. Really cool artwork. And when everything hit the fan, that dude was like, paying me my money back. Felt like he made a deal with the devil. The pastor got together with me.
Oh my God. I've been very similar instances.
Yeah.
Graphical stuff.
More or less, he pulled my wife and me into the office, but he didn't speak much. It was the assistant pastor who took over the church that was doing a lot of the talking, and it was more of him that ended up making the call, if you ask me. I think my pastor kind of digged me because we were supposed to go see the Dead Sea Scrolls in Philadelphia. They were on a tour, and at the Bible study, he's like, hey, why don't all us guys go down and check out the Dead Sea Scrolls in Philadelphia? So, he was open and stuff. I knew that, but there was something else. The people at the church loved me and my wife. We're very outgoing. We were, this specific church, we were last ones in and the last ones out kind of thing. So we were just very able to get along with. We liked talking to a lot of people, being transparent as much as possible too in that part. But we were a threat, because if I just, didn't talk to many people and I was just kind of sitting there and writing a book, I doubt any of this would even happen. But because I had people working for me, was very much involved, I guess they thought it as a threat.
Yeah.
So the question just came down to, is Jesus God? We were sitting there and I just said, no, man, he's not. Not to me, he's not.
Yeah.
Jesus is God. You better believe it. That's the right way to say it. But I can't see man as being the great spirit. We are all endowed with something that is bigger than us. And God resonates through everything and everyone. And I've read enough texts, whether people believe in him or not, by Jesus, and he's not preaching that message. Even in the Aquarian Gospel, you held up, one of my favorite quotes is, Jesus is like, what does it matter to me if you're saved or not? And I mean, that's totally, that's a mind crusher for Christians in the body, So to me, Jesus is my God, because that's how I found God. You know what I mean? It's my entrance. It's my door. It's my master.
He's the door.
Yeah. Christ consciousness. I hope nobody gets my terminology wrong today. It's just, and I even struggle with that because, being Hermetic and stuff like that, I was like, well, okay, I've read books that said he didn't exist. He wasn't the same person. It's just a shadow of another guru from years gone by, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I've gone full circle and even spoke to my wife about it, that like I walk the path, the heart path. And I think you and me spoke about this too a little bit. So the teachings of Jesus, stuff like that's my bread and butter, man.
Yeah.
It's what resonates with me. It's who I want to be.
Well, Jesus and some of the prophets and some of those other texts and other people in Egypt and in India, they spoke about something called the way. I'm a follower of the way. Even some of those early transcripts of Jesus says that I am the way, the truth, and the life. Some of the earlier translation says, I am of the way. I am a follower of the way, the truth, and the life. That's the path I'm on. And I know people who say, a lot of people get caught up with the term Christian. They're not a Christian because if I say I'm a Christian, it's so funny to hear people ask me that, are you a Christian? And for like the core tenets, I would say yes. But as far as any of the doctrinal stuff, no, not really. I disagree with the majority of it, but I'm a follower of Christ. And so a lot of people have kind of adopted, I'm a follower of the way. The way meaning a path that Jesus was on, or a way meaning the path that Jesus set, whatever the case is. People are in here asking about John D. Allegro and the Christian mushroom cult and if Jesus existed and stuff. There's a difference between...
I didn't know. Why didn't you tell me?
There's a difference between Jesus, early biblical Christianity, and the Catholic Church. A lot of people like to kind of tie that together, like they think Christianity is like the Catholic Church or whatever. But if you're following Christ, like as far as from the earliest manuscripts of the scriptures, and maybe even some of the other texts you're talking about, definitely books that were taken out and stuff, more of a spiritual path, they took those books out. But it's different. It's not, when talking about following Christ is not really Catholicism, right? You're not even close to that, right?
Yeah.
Not that I'm against it. It's your own path or whatever, but it's just not the same thing when we mention the path of Christ or the church or whatever the case is. A lot of people don't know that. For in Christianity, we know there's a very big distinction between the two. We're not Mormon, we're not this, we're not Jehovah's Witness, we are evangelicals, we're not Catholic. Catholics is a false religion, but some people on the outside, they just kind of lump everything, all the churchianity stuff together, right?
Yep, bundle package. That's interesting though too, because when I was around all the born agains, I remember how they would beat up on Catholics. My wife.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
My wife was raised Catholic, dude. She's a beautiful woman, and I wouldn't have it any other way. And I'm so glad. When she didn't know where to go or what to do, she ended up in the Catholic Church, and it saved and preserved her for me through all the trials that she went through. But I just remember a lot of Christians are like, damn Catholicism, and it's all a bunch of garbage. And honestly, that's where the ideal of Christianity originated with Catholicism. I don't care; it's part of the tree, so you can't really throw the baby out with the bathwater. Is all I'm saying. So it might have evolved, but it was there first. I mean, it wasn't there first, but I mean, it was there.
No.
yeah.
Peter was the first pope. No.
And you know what I mean? That's amazing too, because being a brother and going through masonry and stuff like that, King James, creating the Bible and sticking it all together the way he did, it's only a 400-year-old thing. So everybody's like, this is the word of God, and this is what stands, and it's 400 years old. I know all the other texts are 1,000 years old, and some are even older, but still, it's like if they look into who created it and why he created it, I don't know, man. Because that same person that created it, I went into the Brotherhood, and they don't believe in Jesus besides a great prophet. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's just interesting when people don't do their homework and they don't look at the history of what they're believing. They're pretty much just kind of living on the coattails of others, and at times lies too.
There's somebody here, Bellstar, says that King James wrote a book about demons too. He wrote a book on demonology. I don't know if you've read it. I wanna read it. I haven't read it yet, but there's it's kind of hard to read. Well, I have found some PDFs online. Yeah. But he actually wrote a book on demonology. It's accredited to him.
No, I know. And I heard some wicked stories about the man himself. And I remember seeing a little bit when I first found out about it, but I never really went after it more to find out who the man King James was. But I do know a little bit to know that it was supposedly a rough history with the guy too.
All of those guys, the Cedric Bozier and the image that we have for Christ as rapists and molesters and all kind of crazy stuff. But let's talk about this though, because there's something there. You talked about a while ago. You don't know what Jesus is, who he is, if he really existed. You say that because it's the truth, because you don't have any proof. You can't physically say, "Oh yeah, he's real." Like I had dinner with him or whatever. You can't prove it, right? So to say that for without the shadow of a doubt that Jesus existed, his name was Yahshua ben Yosef. There's all of these records. There's all kind of stuff disproving that stuff as well. So if we're into gnosis, if we're into studying, right, and there's people who say he's just a fairy tale, he's made up, he never existed. But here you're talking about you're following the path of someone who never existed. I was on a podcast with someone we were talking about this similar thing. And he was asking me, okay, all this stuff debunking Jesus, and what do you say? It's like something is there. Like when you pray to God, the Great Spirit.
I didn't want to lose whatever that is. I don't know what it was, but I didn't want to lose it.
Something's there. It responds to Jesus. It responds to Great Spirit. I've had it. Bring me back to the nomadic way of weaving. Like it responds to a broken spirit and contrite heart of looking up to heaven and saying, God, I need help, right? And I think most of those religions or spiritual paths or holy men have kind of come to the same conclusion of going within, praying and meditating and connecting with something within you that is outside of you and within at the same time, as above, so below, with the Creator that responds and answers to Jesus is one of the names. I can't say it's the only way. That's my way. It's the way that we were introduced to God or the Creator was through this path, right? And there's something there.
And you know what changed me too? One of the things, the first part isn't just Jesus sent his disciples out to forgive sins. It's in the Bible. You know what I mean? It changes the whole dynamics of what the church stands on, because if Jesus is going to send his followers out that they can actually go out and forgive sins, why the cross? I know the cross. I know the Egyptian cross. I know the cross. It's all good. But what really changed me was that the scriptures, narrow is the gate and few find it.
Yeah.
There's billions, millions Christians, there's Muslims. They're all over the world. You know what I mean? Narrow though, real narrow, and only a few find it. And one day after reading it hundreds of times, I was like, what? And then the point of you can even do greater things than these. So if people are going to exalt Jesus and he's going to look me in the face and tell me that I can even do greater things than him, I'm on board. Take my hand, teach me how to do it, make me like you. You know what I mean? So it's just like you so many exalt Jesus as God, fine. He said you can do even greater things. So if he said that you can do even greater things than God, where do you stand? That's what changed my life.
Yeah, that's a big one.
It is big.
It's a big one. It's a big one with the Christians too. It's like they're kind of like, I think what they did with you is something that they do, or we have done, is they like start breaking everything down to figure out what you don't agree with that goes along with them. Okay, what about Jesus? Was he God? And if you was to say yeah, they would say, okay, what about tithing? Is God going to curse you if you tithe? No, he won't curse you. Oh, they try to keep going through this checklist, and they're like, okay, this is what we got them on. Right? Because I've talked to the Christians or whatever in the past who were doing that to me, and they were like, the whole Jesus is God thing versus Jesus is the Son of God. Yep. And I'm saying, I'm blatant, like, I don't think he's God, man. I think he worships the Father. He showed us how to worship the Father. He is the Son of God, showing us the way. He prays to the Father. He's not schizophrenic. God did not leave the throne and become a man, as we've taught in youth group. Yeah, God left his throne in heaven and became a man. He was tempted in every way. It's like that. I don't think it's not happened, and but they were wanting me to say that Jesus was God versus the Son of God. I say, look, he's the expression of the Father. He's the image of the Father. He's made in the likeness. You know what I'm saying? And I'm good. I'm okay with everything else. But saying that Jesus was God, and so okay, there's the we can't walk together because can two walk together unless they agree? And you don't think that Jesus was God? I'm like, man, I'm just quoting the scriptures as they're written. And that was the Son of God.
Didn't the sign say everybody welcome?
Until you have a voice or you have an opinion. Until you have an opinion, you can't have an opinion. Have you heard? I put this at the end of one of my songs. Have you heard Billy Graham talking about how Jesus, because you were talking about the path or whatever, and there's all these millions of Christians, and then earlier you were saying a lot of them just show up. They're just there, 90% of them. So
scared of death.
10% so you said 90% just show up. 10% is kind of a narrow road, right?
That seems like a lot, actually.
But it's still a lot.
Sorry.
But so Billy Graham talked about Jesus having a people for his namesake out of every religion. They may not even have heard the name of Jesus, but they're still followers of Christ. They may be Hindu, Amen. They may be Muslim. Not Benny Hinn. I just said his name. Billy Graham said that, and I'll put it at the end of one of my songs. Have you heard that quote?
I might have. What song by any chance?
Well, it's at the end of Syncretism.
Okay, I probably did, but I maybe just kind of got past me.
Syncretism, yeah, it's at the end, and it's pretty powerful. That was part of the awakening too. Is like
your songs are powerful, Derek.
Thank you, sir.
I love them, man. The words are great. They sure are, man. You do a great job, man.
It was part of the revelation, man, of just understanding that Billy Graham, the greatest evangelical preacher of our time, who's won the most people to Jesus and done the good work, fought the good fight, at the end of his life, when everything is almost done, he's getting to the end of his life, is putting out statements saying God has a people for his namesake out of every religion who they don't even know. He pretty much said they're Christians and they don't know it.
Well, you know the stories when like the Spanish conquistadors came into Mesoamerica and stuff and started putting people at the edge of the sword and saying, accept Jesus or die, more or less. They would tell stories on what their witness was. And the Native Americans would be saying, we know them. We know him. We know who you speak about, without even knowing who Jesus was, because it was the same person that they believed in without the tag of Europe. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's just kind of a roundabout way to say it. But there's so many stories about, people being told what to believe. And they were like, we've believed it all along. It's not a new message or a new savior to us. You hear about it all the time in many of the different religions and the stories throughout the world of kind of the Crusades, when people are forced to believe in something and they're like, well, we believe it, but it's just not, it's not your Jesus or, the way you're presenting it, but we've known for quite some time about this.
They'll say, well, that's another Jesus. That's not, it's a different one. Yeah. The different one. That was even kind of deep for me. I talked about like, my daughter, trying to lead her to Jesus at like 5 years old. okay, there's this prayer you got to pray. You got to ask Jesus into your heart, you know, and trying to do the same way that I came to God, she had no idea what I was talking about. She's like, I already know Jesus. Like, I already have him in my heart. I said, you got to pray this prayer and ask him to come in and ask him to forgive you. Like, I already know him. You know what I'm saying? It's the innocence of a child. It blew my mind. I was like, no, you have to pray this prayer to know what he did for you on the cross and ask him to come in. It's like, I already know him. What are you talking about? A little kid, she couldn't understand it. Maybe when life kicks in.
She already knew.
She already knew. There's an innocence there, right? Maybe when life kicks in and things like that, and you can understand what's going on.
Source, man. That's why my daughters were baptized when they're young, but you know, they dedicated. Sorry, their baptism, if they choose it, that's up to them, man. You know, I've seen people come in, get baptized, and live a hell of a life, and I mean in a bad way. And other people that say the sinner's prayer thing always bothered the heck out of me. I was around some Jesus cult people, I love that term, that thought the sinner's prayer saved everybody. You say these words and you are going to heaven, but you
gotta
can
get you to say it, man. Yeah,
you
just
can
say
go
it
out and live like a devil the rest of the day, and it's all good because you said that prayer. It's just so bunk, man. You know, it really is. But yeah, like I said, it depends who you're with and who you were brought up with in church. But that was kind of my misery.
Well, let me ask you about this too. With the whole church thing, is like you came into it being a musician, playing on the worship team and stuff like that. And a lot of people, if they don't know any better, they get run through the ringer because they have a talent. You come into the church and you can play music. Get him up there. We need a We need a bassist. Get him up there. Now you're in a ministry. Now you have to walk this narrow road. Now you have to keep a standard that we don't even hold ourselves to. But if you falter off the road on this pedestal now that you're on, you're going to be in trouble. Or we heard that you were doing this. We heard that you were doing that. And I've seen people who come into the church with a talent and they throw them up there. Yeah. They're a good performer. They're good.
Everybody's an usher first, though.
Piano sing. I've seen them jump straight. I'll say this.
It's still true, though.
I went into a church, one of my old churches. Someone would come in fresh off the street, and the pastor was looking for a youth pastor, and he'd call him out. You the future youth pastor. Random people, and they're like, me? He's like just giving roles to people because they were just building the church and like, you're this, you're that. And then he would jack them up because they would become the youth pastor. He'd say, hey, I need somebody to lead the youth, and I feel like God said it was you, and blah, blah, blah. And they get them in there, right? They're just a visitor at this point, maybe 2-3 weeks in. And then now they have to lead Bible studies and lead the youth. Yeah. And they do something that the pastor didn't like or the leadership didn't like, and then they cut their head off. Like it was a girl who the pastor did that too. And the pastor, they seen a picture of her on Facebook where she went to her class reunion and had a glass of wine at her 10-year class reunion. They seen it. Somebody shared it on Facebook. They pulled her to the side. You can't be doing that. We're gonna have to let you go. Like taking these people who, or if you want to call them baby Christians or whatever, but they just throw people up in these positions and stuff. And when they fall, man, when you go through that, or if you quit playing guitar, you're not the dude anymore. You're a regular member. You just go back out into the congregation. We can't really use you. Man, it's messed a lot of people up. I've got friends, dude, who are in my book psalmists. They're psalmists. When they play the stringed instrument, something happens. Yeah. And they won't touch it anymore because they've been hurt by the church. They've been on leadership. They've been great worship leaders, and then crazy stuff happened with, going through, and the pastor didn't care about them. They just cared if they can play. Hey, we just still need you to do these songs, or I don't care about your pornography addiction. I need you to do these songs, all of this kind of stuff. Or hey, don't pray, don't talk about grieving over your sin and fasting. Just play these songs. And it's like just this mechanical thing, and it's messed up a lot of people. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it's a shame, man. I always say I overshot the church because even the church I was asked to leave, it was okay to have an atheist in the sound booth, but God forbid somebody that was actually following the shoes of Jesus, in the footsteps of Jesus, and going out to
seek all the knowledge that we can, and that's another thing too. I mean, there's so many knowledge gurus these days. I dig the Gnosis thing. It's kind of, I'm building my business upon it. It's all good. But I'm thankful that God has my heart, man. It's always been a heart issue with me, and the knowledge does not work if your heart isn't pure. And I'm learning that, and knowledge is good, but if it's not applied, it's just rubbish. It's good to know, but if you don't apply what you know, it's just, it's worthless. And
if it's not helping you.
So many knowledge,
practical knowledge too, right?
Yeah,
Making it practical, like how, like, okay, what does that benefit you, that this is the way that works, or that's the way that unfolds, or what that system or that hierarchy is. How are you, is it helping you, or is it making you paranoid when you go out in public? Do you stick to yourself? I know those people too. Super smart people, biblical knowledge. When it comes to InfoWars and Alex Jones knowledge, like they're really good, but it gets them to a place where they just withdraw. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. The lucky thing for me is I know the Bible better than most pastors. So, I mean, I'm one of those people, I can't give you the verse, but I can quote it for you. And it's usually on my heart. It's been engraved in my heart. So it's been very useful and resourceful for me. And that's why it's like, I always say it's like kind of kicking your mother if I'm going to say Christianity or the church is of no use, because it is, because I'm here. You know what I mean? It's the path I took, but yet when it came time to grow beyond that original kind of like foundation,
elementary.
And that's what it's meant for, man. It's get people in, and so when I decided that there was something bigger, and the Holy Spirit and Christ was telling me, go bigger, go better, I did, but other people didn't understand.
Yeah, same here. I had a close friend of mine who has stuck with me this whole time. There's only a couple people who have stuck there. Thank God for those people.
Yeah.
There's only a couple, but even them, like one of my friends, he was like, man, I just think you got tired of the Bible, man. He said, I think you got bored with the Bible. I was like, hold on, the Bible's not, it's not boring. That's not why I started reading the lost books. I'm trying to read the books they took out and understand why they took them out. Like it's not that the Bible was boring. Like there's so much wisdom.
Why were the Catholic Church or the Christians or the Crusaders trying to burn everything else and destroy everything else so there would just be one book? What was so wrong with all the other books? What was in them that actually made sense and elevated people above the brute beast? Obviously it was a threat to their religion and their what they were trying to do. So I mean, it's a shame so much of it is lost. But
it's a business, and when you threaten that business, you get a target on your back, like you did with the church. So it's like you can't keep going there, because when they're going to ask you about Jesus or ask you about what books belong in the Bible or whatever, when that stuff comes up, you're going to be a threat. Just like all that stuff's a threat. Just like people questioning the Bible or questioning any just doctrine, man. I'm just with the doctrine stuff. Like, if you just disagree with anything, the whole tithing thing I mentioned a while ago, they a lot of them preach tithing as a means of control to get your money. They put you under bondage and say that God's gonna, if you don't give your 10%, God's gonna find a way to take it from you. That's what we were taught coming up in church, and so every time we had something bad happen, we thought it was God taking it because we weren't able to pay the tithe, the 10%. So here you are being liberated from that, or coming to a different understanding in the Bible that that's not true. I know the pastor said that, but it's not true. Yeah, you can't go around doing that. Like they're going to.
Even said, give to Caesar what's Caesar and give to God what's God.
Yeah.
You're probably, these people paying their tithe probably aren't giving enough to God. Actually, if you ask me, it's that the tithing thing is definitely Old Testament and archaic. it's how they keep the building up.
Yeah, and that's a good principle. Like I said, if you believe in that building. Somebody's we got to fund it. You know what I'm saying?
It gives you joy, and that's where you go worship and all that stuff. I remember. It's all good. I do miss praise and worship as it is. That's probably what I miss most. I really don't miss the fakeness of the whole thing, and not everybody is. That's for sure. There's a lot of beautiful people. But it's when people start telling you what your path is, what God wants from you, and what to believe. That's where it just gets a little rough. But I can twist it a little bit here on the word of gnosis, because my introduction on the book actually goes into the Giza Plateau, Pumapunko, Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, and the city of the gods in Mexico, Teotihuacan. And you got
that was the demons, brother.
Yeah, sure. So you got all these buildings all around the world, and when you read the introduction, you realize that these buildings were actually more or less what we consider to be nuclear reactors that we use today, power sources of ancient. So when you actually take the God of the Old Testament and make him one of these beings coming down from the sky, it changes religion, man. You know what I mean? I use scripture in the word of gnosis that, this is a part that I love. They say that Satan was in the Garden of Eden, right? Beautiful cherubim. When I read the Bible, it says that God was in the Garden of Eden with Adam. It changes everything when you realize that what man perceives as God is just something a little bit more intellectually above us, that we couldn't comprehend. That's why I'm a Hermetic with the all, and being able to separate these image of these beings that kind of created religions on earth. Yeah. Well, actually, they didn't create them, man did, sort of. But that's what changed a lot for me. When I started realizing that something happened. Are they? So
let's talk about these beings real quick, though. Are these beings you're mentioning? From all of my study, there you go. He's holding up a picture of his shirt for people listening on the podcast. It's got an alien on it. It's a Giorgio Tsoukalos shirt with an alien. So these gods or these entities or whatever, from all of my studying, from having encounters, that's part of the study and that's part of the experience. Yeah. I've come to understand when we're talking about Tsoukalos, we're talking about ancient aliens, we're talking about the reactors, we're talking about the Bible. I believe in those beings. Are they good or are they bad? Is it the Sumerian literature that they're here to enslave humanity, or is there? Because even then, like, the entities believed in, like, they had a creator as well.
Yeah, of course.
What I call them the Elo, Elo. Of God sending the creator gods, the little gods, or whatever you want to call them, the workers, whatever they are, to create us, to genetically modify us, however scientific you want to get with it. But there was an essence, I believe, that we call them the angels, right? We call them angels when we see them and we interact with them as well, still to this day. I do believe in the bad ones. I believe that the earth is run by the government, which are bad people, or the seed of the serpent. Yeah. It gets into reptilian stuff maybe, but that's a biblical term, the seed of the serpent, that will fight against the sons and daughters of God, which I believe are the ones who are filled with the Spirit. Yeah. What is your view on aliens, angels, good, bad, demons? Because like I said, the Christian version, most Christians agree to those pyramids you were talking about, and those plateaus were built by fallen angels who were channeling demons. I don't believe that. I don't believe that by any means. But
I didn't hear that. Maybe I wouldn't have wrote my book.
You just dedicated it to 2 books now. But, no, but that's what when Christians, like, that's their explanation for all of this stuff we're about to go into.
Oh, I know. And you know what? People, I've been so good at not naming names, and I'm still not gonna. But people would say that, like the book, the Bhagavad Gita, was like kind of devil going ahead thousands of years to plant something before Christ came. Don't get me wrong, there's plenty of Christians probably sitting out there going, what? But I heard these tales about, Satan moving ahead at times to make things seem like they were that way, so people would be confused. I don't know if that's the right way.
No, I've heard that too.
Yeah. So,
and you even hear that on the other end, that the stories that are written of, the story of the hero's path or whatever, that Jesus is plagiarized from the other cultures, and all the other stories in the Bible is kind of a rip off of all of this stuff taken and put together in one book. I'm into astrotheology from a Christian perspective. I say I probably need to stop using that word. I'm not a Gnostic though, because there's things in Gnosticism that I don't really agree with, and I know
it's a basket, isn't it?
Exactly. So I'm just like, I'm a follower of the way. But here's a book here, The Glory of the Stars. Oh, cool. The Bible is astrology. The Bible is pure astrology. It's beautiful astrology. It paints the stories of so many characters that we go through. We play the part and the role of those characters. And I believe that the zodiac is telling the story of Christ. We look at the the Magi, who are the stargazers or the seers, were the first ones to show up and know where the Messiah was to be born. These were stargazers. These weren't the kings and rulers or the priest. These were stargazers who showed up, So everything kind of works together there. But I know we're jumping all over the place. But go back to these beings, man. Who are they? Well,
like I said, I do spell it out in my book to a point because I use scripture to kind of build up my idea. I am totally cool with the beings, man, because if we were modified, thank God. And the same thing, it's like, is it Jesus or Michael said that he went more or less cast accusations against the devil? I think it was Michael when he was the archangel Michael, when he was having he was being held back at one point. He was trying to get somewhere. Sorry, I'm kind of
yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's talking about he was withstanding. Maybe this is the same point. He was withstanding the Prince of Persia.
Yeah.
Principality that was battling him in outer space.
Yeah, and he wouldn't pass accusations, and neither do I. I'm totally cool, even with the devil. the people's devil. I know where mine is. But anyway, because even in the Gnostic, the Nagadami, it talks about Shaitan. Is it Shaitan? I think I'm saying it right.
Shaitan.
Which kind of seemed to be the playoff of where the name Satan came from.
It is. That's where it's from.
Yeah, exactly. So, you have all these players early in the day, more or less like the Gobekli days, the Easter Island days, Atlantis days, Lemuria days. You have all these players that are forgotten because of the flood. The flood obviously got rid of just about everything to start anew. So you have these beings that came down, who have obviously been living in other civilizations for who knows how long. The Sumerian tablets talk a lot about Mars being the way station and coming here. So when you see the buildings and you think about the way man was 7,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago, these things are just completely impossible. I mean, I love when people try to wrap their mind about like having these 5, 10, 70 ton rocks coming down on barges on the river and how they're placed inside the pyramid yet. Like the pyramid was built around these coffers, I think, right? That way, just astronomical. It's impossible. It's vibration, it's sound, it's music, it's Pythagorean teaching. It's learning to take these things. It's a knowledge that we don't know. And it's not that we didn't know, because maybe some of us did know it 5,000, 3,000 years ago. But whatever it was, you have Thoth with the ibis head. You have the matadors. You have these half beings. And it talks about it in the Bible, and it talks about it in Enoch and all that, where they were kind of messing with the creation, and all kinds of beings were kind of made up. You got it in Greek mythology. It's all over the place. I'd prefer to live in that world. Actually, it probably was pretty cool. But it's, to me, it's pretty cut and dry, plain and simple, that at least through the Christian Bible, the Old Testament and stuff like that, and these gods and the players were these beings. They might look to a higher being through the book and the teachings. Don't get me wrong. But
because they had to come from somewhere too, right? I mean,
What's that?
I said, because if they're created beings, they have to have a creator as well, right? They have to come from somewhere.
Yeah, of course. And that's who we look at.
Yeah.
Or at least I'd like to think we look at. Maybe it's not completely. But that's where
it is. It's just, I think we're just learning more about whatever that is every day. And it's just, that's what blows your mind. And that's a good place to be. Versus saying I got it all figured out. This is how it is. It was just, this is it, every day.
Yes. I know. And one of the cool things and I think this is where my second book might come in at, I love the timeline when the Old Testament was written around 600 BC in captivity in Babylon. Okay. So it doesn't mean it was all put together then, but it was definitely, the Torah was brought together in that captivity where the Jewish God brought them into captivity into Babylon. Now that's 600, 500. Now, something happened because you have Plato talking about it. You have Pythagoras talking about it. Okay. And then something happened. But if you look at the Mesoamericas in America at that same time, when when God got quiet, you know what I mean? The Christian God got quiet. Why don't we hear from him anymore except through the Jesus stint of 30 years? And Paul, when God got quiet, I'm very sure that whatever these beings were or whoever they were that were part of the Babylonian pantheon and in the Jewish who walked them out of Egypt and stuff like that. It's very interesting that all these Mesoamerican cultures from Chichen Itza to Teotihuacan, I can't say Punco because that seems a little bit older, but talking about the Nazca lines, talking about Peru, talking about Bolivia, all these nations started rising at that same time, that right after the captivity of Jewish people, and it seemed like the gods disappeared from the Eastern Hemisphere. Yes, that's one of the things that I want to put together in a coming book, because it seems like when it stopped in the Middle East, it started in the Americas. Because there are stories about Magellan coming to the Americas and a female giant that they had on his ship. I think there's two of them, if I understand the story correctly. The size was, I can't remember the size, but 15 feet, 20 feet, or even bigger. So these things were around, whether people want to believe it or not. So whatever happened, it seemed like it shifted from one side of the earth to the other side of the earth until something else happened again. Because even the Toltecs, which are kind of like they were the spiritual people in Mexico. Certain Olmecs, these people just disappeared. You know what I mean? Easter Island and whatever was there, it was a big deal back in the day.
That's the rapture, man. They were taken out of here, buddy.
It is. No doubt. So it's just, I like putting those pieces together. Something happened that shifted where it seemed like the people weren't willing to deal with it or worship it anymore. So they tried going to a new people. And it lasted for some time, maybe another 1,000, 2,000 years. But I'm just curious, putting those pieces together going forward. I'll actually be going to Chichen Itza with NEXT on adept explorations in expeditions in November. So I'll have some more stuff coming out with that. So it should be pretty cool.
Wow. A couple things I got written down here. I know we can just keep going, and I'm good as long as you are. You just let me know.
I just need some water, but other than that, I'm cool.
Great. So trying to see what it was. All right, let me go here first. All right, you mentioned you like the New Testament, the teachings of Christ, following Christ, and stuff like that. But you mentioned you're not into the Pauline epistles pretty much anymore.
Ephesians, Philippians.
I like Paul. Yeah. I think he was a pretty spiritual dude. We're talking about taking trips, astral traveling to heaven, and. Well, what about Peter, though? Does Peter fall in that category with you, or just Paul? Because and I say that, I want to preface that because I like Paul. Some people are against it. Pauline Christianity, where they exalt Paul over Jesus. I'm not into that. That's
my issue, Derek.
Okay.
That really is. You know what I mean?
Some people say Paul is the Antichrist. Like I don't know if you've ran into that. Like they got it mapped out pretty good too. If you're open-minded, it's really convincing about how he's changing what Jesus said and adding this to it and all types of crazy stuff. So they say, was Paul a disciple or a deceiver? And a lot of people think he's the Antichrist. I'm not going down that road. I happen to like Paul, but You don't look at it like that, right? Yeah, okay. You're not going that far. Okay.
No, not at all. And you could help me with this too, because it's been a little bit. But didn't Paul mention Christ more than he mentioned the name Jesus? He was a Christ bender, wasn't he? You know what I mean? Didn't he use the name Christ more than Jesus?
I'm not sure about more either, or I'm not really sure.
Okay, all right. It's something I was reflecting on earlier, and I just wanted to get back to. But yeah, so all in all, I mean, you have the Gnostic teachings of Paul too, which are pleasant. There's a lot of good things in it, but I think the issue with me is that most
Christianity, yeah,
they're not following Jesus.
They're following Paul. Exactly. I'm with you on that.
Yeah, so that's it. You know what I mean? So then you kind of, yeah.
Okay, so cool.
I mean, think about everything Paul did. You know what I mean? I would never want to disrespect that. You know what I mean? I love workers in the field, man. So, my hat's off to it.
Yeah, it's pretty deep. I forgot what I was gonna say.
That's
something about Peter. I don't know. Go ahead.
Yeah. That's with like Peter when they talk about the food coming down on the.
That's deep. Yeah.
Kill and eat and stuff like that. My family's like half vegetarian, and honestly, dude, it's just like people can do what they want. All I know is I've had strokes. I have bad health because of anxiety and stuff like that, and I decided to be more. The only thing I haven't really gotten away from is chicken. But we've become more vegetarian. So it's just like, I just remember a lot of Christians always using that scripture to justify
the law. Breaking the law and eating unclean animals.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So, but I've just learned that, as humans, we're when you go all the way back to the beginning of the Bible, it talks about the larger beings, the sons of God, starting to eat man and eating the animals. And it appalled God. So if it appalled God back then, what changed? You know what I mean? It seems like we are more bent for a natural diet. It's I'm coming to that revelation.
I'm coming there too. It's still it's a process. It's a process. Like we actually did. We were Messianic Christians for like 8 years, and where we were trying to get out of Babylon. And one of the things was eating according to the law. Whatever God said not to eat. So that scripture came up a lot. Trust me. Hey, you guys, you don't want bacon? Why? Well, because God said don't eat it, and we're just trying to stick to that diet. Oh, yes, he did. He brought them down in a blanket and said, take and eat. But if you get to to the bottom of that story, like it kind of interprets itself. That was symbolic. Like those unclean animals were symbolic for people, for beasts. And it was for Peter to bring the gospel to the Gentiles. He wouldn't be around Gentiles. They called them dogs.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? They looked at him as like second-class citizens, and he wasn't going to go to them. He had a dream where God said, take and eat. He's seen all of the unclean animals that Jews do not eat. They're not even considered food. God, and I'm with that. I don't think God created those especially unclean animals to be food. Like they are the garbage disposals. They're the cleanup crew. You are what you ate. Scratch that. Yep. You are what you ate.
Yep.
and that's in your blood, and they hold nasty and bugs and all kind of crazy stuff within their skin. So I really do. I still believe in that, but I'm at the point now is like my struggle isn't about if I eat a shrimp or a piece of bacon. My struggle is getting all the meat out whatsoever. You know what I'm saying? Because we taught that for years, and we have people who now eat kosher because of things we taught, and then they're like, yeah, you got to get back on kosher. It's like, bro, I'm trying to get back on vegetarian. Like that's the struggle now. Like
I love fish. I eat fish, seafood like 5-7 days a week. So
Kurt Cobain said it's okay to eat fish though. Because they don't have any feelings.
I'm not in the Kurt cult either. But no, it's wrapping your mind around it and doing better. And I think they enhance your walk with God, your thinking process. This is my favorite story from Standing Rock. Real easy peasy, man. Show up at Standing Rock, pitch a tent next to the Hoopa tribe from California, walk up eating an apple one morning, look at the fire that they have nicely made, dug into the ground, and was finished with my apple, and I threw the core in the fire. And the chief at the time reached right in the fire and pulled the core out and looked at me and said, "It's all cool, man, but fire is sacred." And it just blew my mind because I didn't realize so many things that I was missing, that like every extension of ourself is sacred. So, kind of with the whole food thing, it's just, it's a tough one, man. You know what I mean? We've come so far and have been kind of lied to about a lot of things. So
we're trying to figure it out again. And I had every side saying, this is right. No, that's right. Yeah. Don't eat anything. Or you can eat this.
But I'm like you, I'm learning, and I just know what's better for me. I do better. I feel better, I'm working at it.
That's what you got to go with. What makes you feel better. Your body is functioning better.
Tell people what to eat or what not to eat. I just know, like I said, if you're going to read your Bible and you think, if you're going to throw me out for one truth, why aren't you paying attention to the other truths that actually started in like the third or fourth verse? Well, the first or second chapter of the Bible, where it says that the beings started to eat each other. And Enoch too, so Enoch's a dead ringer to me, man. It is in the Bible. They just don't know it.
Enoch is a deep one, man. It was the one they needed to hide from us. And there's actually scriptures in the Old Testament that says that some of these books will be hid and it will be revealed at the end, towards the end of the age. They'll come back. There's other books where it talks about that God will seal the knowledge, and those who are learned and those who are studied, and they won't be able to understand it. It is to the lowly. It's to those who are unlearned. God will give the revelation of the book. That's where we are. That's where it's about spirit. It's not about, I got all these books. I've done the research. That's good. But if you're not tapped in with the spirit, then it doesn't even serve you. You can't tell me nothing. Why are we going to people? Everybody's got something to say about Jesus. He's this, he's that, he never existed, he was a mushroom, whatever. Why are we going to these people? Yeah, why are we going to these people who don't have a relationship with him, and we're letting him, we're letting them tell us about him?
Yeah, amen.
Like, I know him. I know him. Let me tell you about him. I know him a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I know.
Going to all the other nations. But that's one thing that's cool about Jesus, though, is that the other nations reference him.
Of course.
All the other books, the Hindus, yes, Jesus came here and he learned for 20 years, and they have a shrine built to Mother Mary, and they say that's where she died, and he's mentioned of in the Quran. All of these other stories and all these other religions, they all give veneration, at least to say that he existed. They might not say he was the son of God and the prophet of God, but they say that, no, he came here, he taught our people, he learned under some of the gurus. Like he's in their stories, right?
Yeah, sure thing, man. And that's one of the reasons why I rewrote the Aquarian Gospel. I am the first author to retranscribe the original text from 1906.
Oh, that's because I actually started reading the introduction last night, and I was kind of wondering. So you rewrote everything, just kind of changed the wording and kind of transferred.
There's like 188 chapters. All nothing was paraphrased, and more or less it was just verses. So I just learned that I wanted to create something that people, even my grandmother, can sit down and enjoy to read. So I really turned it into a novel, but I mean, it's taken from the Akashic records in the late 1880s through about 1900.
Now, is he the originator of the Akashic records, or is he just someone that tapped into it?
He's the... Come on, trick question guy.
No, I'm not talking about...
No, it's all cool, man. He tapped into it. It's there. I'd like to tap into it.
No, but is he the first one that kind of coined the phrase? You know what I'm saying?
You could be onto something there. Yeah.
I didn't know that. I'm not real. I know what the Akashic records are, but I'm not real. I don't know who was the guy who came out telling you how to do it.
Levi Dowling is that he was one of the first. I'm going to miss the term again. Doctor that used medicine. What do they call him today?
Physician? Holistic? No.
Yeah, holistic. He's one of the first ones. So that's what really makes this author really interesting to me. Him and his dad were also trying to create a one world church in the United States. They were the first ones. I forget the name of the movement. It's in the introduction. But more or less, they were trying to get all the churches underneath one roof, to be one people, which again amazes me. So when I read the Aquarian Gospel, people will question, well, it's not authentic. The guy had meditated and got visions to play back the life of Jesus. And I say, I look at the character of the person and I say, he's worth following. He's worth looking into because of what he did as a person. And then the Aquarian Gospel goes into the missing years, and really the teachings are unbelievable. Best teachings I ever read. And that's why I said, I don't need to get behind the Aquarian Gospel and make it a matter of fact. Some people, already came to me, so-and-so don't think this is authentic. I'm like, well, let them not think it's authentic.
Well, they say the same. They're going to say that about every text, though.
Yeah,
because they're saying that about Enoch and how powerful Enoch is. They say it about the Bible.
Yeah, sure.
They almost didn't include Jude in it because Jude referenced Enoch in the Bible. Like all of these things of like, there's only a certain amount of texts that were found, so they're not people. Every book.
And because some council got together in 300, which isn't even the book that the Christians are reading today. It's not the book. And they
who weren't inspired.
The council got together.
People who weren't inspired got together to tell you what books are inspired by the Holy Spirit. Man,
that's the biggest hogwash. It really is. And I was played up on that for a little bit myself. Like I said, ignorance runs rampant.
Let me ask you this, though. As far as copyright is concerned, there's some books that are not well known out there. I do see some references to sacredtext.com in here. There's some books on there that aren't well known. How does that work to take his work and get the copyright on it and be able to make edits and kind of reprint it and still have his name in there and stuff like that? How does that work?
The cool thing about this actual work, and real quick, my second book was going to be called In the Light of Gnosis, and it was specifically all the teachings that Jesus said I know of. I have the Kaledi here, which is from New Zealand. Awesome gospel. Love it to death. And all the teachings of Jesus I was putting in one book. And the Aquarian Gospel was sort of like the core of this book. It was a big book. And then right when I was getting ready to kind of publish it, something hit me, and it was all about the Aquarian. I got rid of everything else. The Aquarian Gospel was never copyrighted because it was printed in 2006, 2007. I'm sorry, 2000. 1906, 1907. Copyrights came out in the 1920s. So it was never protected. And anyway, it's over 100 years over its publication.
So you have to find the first publication of it. And I'm asking about, because there's a text in general that I'm really into. I don't know if you know about it. The Recognitions of Clement.
Yeah, I read it. I got it. Yeah.
Great book. You have it in print version?
That's another one. That and the Gospel of Barnabas, or
he was a disciple of Barnabas. Yeah.
Books, dude. Yeah. Clement's awesome.
Yep. Deep stuff about demons and how they operate, and
and that book's authentic from a philosopher. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But so did I answer your question? No, it was never copyrighted because we didn't have copyright. That came into 15, 20 years later. So I took everybody, if you go online and Amazon and put the Aquarian Gospel in, you'll get like 20 or 30 of them because you were allowed to put a new cover on it, take the text and sell it, period. Huh. What I did was put a cover on it, rewrite it. And
I think people are doing that with Clement, because I tried to hit a dude up who did that. I was like, bro, I need you on the podcast, man. Like we got to talk about this book. And he's like, he wouldn't do it. And I'm like, I don't think he, and this was some years ago when I first read it. I think he just put a cover on it and put it out on Amazon to download for $10.
That's what people are doing with the Aquarian Gospel too. There's got to be at least 10, 20 versions of the original. I'm the first one to obviously translate it into something very readable. Yeah.
Well, when we're discussing copyrights, I mean, that's one thing about the Bible and all the different translations and versions. There's, so many of them. And the reason there are is like the Rod Parsley Bible, the Benny Hinn Bible, the Creflo Dollar Bible. They all have their own Bible, but in order for them to be able to sell it and reprint it, they have to make so many changes to the text. They can't just put their name on it, do a little commentary. Like they have to change so many words. That's why, like, there's a lot of people who tell you that the King James took out the thine and thine in the New King James. But there's so much that's changed from those earlier versions, and the reason they do that is so that they can get a copyright on it and sell it, and they'll change it up, and you have the message. My daughter she goes to a Christian school, and they had to learn John 3:16. I'm listening. I'm like, what the heck are y'all reading?
Oh no!
It was like the simplicity.
That was the Living Bible in the 90s.
Yeah, well, they did it to the Message, and there was a big backlash against the Message that the New Agers and people wrote that version, but it was just so like weird. It's like, man, that's John 3:16. Like I heard a couple things in it, but they're just trying to make it too plain and stuff, man.
That's
but
good stuff. No, I can totally relate to you. Maybe we can talk outside this podcast, obviously. But as you can see in the word gnosis, I rewrote Revelation underneath the name anagogy of the scribe, which is Greek for mystical interpretation of a scribe. But I took the books in Revelation and put them in proper order, meaning that like the falling away, also what I call the Atlantis in Revelation is where they talk about a lot of people think it's today about the ship-faring country that all the nations wept when they saw her destruction, and no one ever came to live in her again. To me, that's Atlantis. To me, Revelation is, and someone told me this way back in a Bible study in the late 90s that said, Revelation is past. And I looked at the dude and I laughed him to scorn. And I'm like, don't tell the others. Don't get me in trouble. You came here with me and stuff. And then, 10, 15 years go by and I'm like, a lot of the Revelation is history.
I think it all is, man.
Yeah. So I took parts of Revelation and moved them into a right order of things is what I call them. Even with Enoch, when I rewrote Enoch in there, and it's very pleasant and very easy to read, I took out the teachings of Noah that were mixed in with the texts and got everything on a proper timeline.
The first half of Enoch is all I care to read anyway.
What's that?
The first half of Enoch is all that's...
The sad thing is, like, in my book, The Word Gnosis, at the end of Enoch, it goes into this, I think it's a scribe, because you can tell from the writings of Enoch, and all of a sudden at the end, there's just like this judgment and this hellfire that comes out of nowhere. And to me, it was a text that was written that had Enoch on it and passed along with someone else's view at the end. Now, it is in the Word of Gnosis. I'm not happy about it, but I wanted to keep the text together. I don't want to damn anybody. I'm just like that. So only love can do that. Can bring people to Christ, man. That's one of my biggest sayings. Fear and damnation has never saved anybody. And there's a picture of the cross on Jesus' back. Only love can do that, man. So like I said, with Enoch, I wanted to keep it whole because I had a problem with, this came out in my first book, my first publication. I took Revelation and I got rid of the introduction and the end, where it says anybody that adds to or takes away from any of these texts will spend an eternity in hell. And I cut it because it was the end of a letter. And if you were
adding to it, not.
Yeah, no, and this is where, like, my brother, I haven't spoken to since 2012.
Oh, yeah, you told me. Yeah.
Found out that I changed the text and removed text. So I was like, you know what? It wasn't that important. I was just trying to show the whole text without what I thought was another scribe's input at the end. Because why would God or Jesus threaten anybody? You know what I mean? That's just the way I saw it. So when this happened with my brother kind of criticizing me for removing something, I made sure in the next version of the Word Gnosis that I kept everything tight and I didn't remove anything. So it just made sense. I didn't want anybody to think I had something up my sleeve that I was trying to remove or add something that just didn't make sense. Other than that, everything is, politically correct and in line.
There's a weird transition there when you start venturing outside of the Bible as a Christian. Like, okay, what can I get into? Okay, now a lot of people's getting into Enoch. Years ago, when you were getting into this, it's more accepted now. You're liable to go to church and your pastor quote Enoch now.
Yeah,
but,
sure.
Even like 10 years ago, it wasn't though. Like I had people. Like, it wasn't good to quote Enoch in churches or talk about the Illuminati or fallen angel, to really get into the stuff that's now it's memes. It's everywhere now. But when you finally cross that threshold of getting into those books that they tell you to stay away from, they're forbidden books of the Bible. Ooh, it's forbidden fruit here. I'm not supposed to know this type stuff.
Didn't Paul say that all scripture period.
Exactly. Well, that's one of the scriptures. That's one of the things that say, go ahead and read it, man. All of it's inspired.
All scripture.
It was in there once, man. Find out what it said.
For sure, that's the Bible he's talking about, because the Bible was around when he was around.
Especially, like I said, and then Jude. Reading the book of Jude. Jude quotes Enoch. Okay, well, let's go read Enoch. It's quoted in the Bible, and you read Enoch, and then you find out, you get a kind of game plan about what was to come or how these demons operate or whatever. And then you start reading the Bible, breaking it down even more, and you start finding, and I'll just say this, there's a program called eSword. There's a lot of Bible programs. You probably do this even with Google, but type in the Bible, like a Bible search, book of, type in book of, and you're going to find maybe hundreds of quotes in the Bible that says, as it is written in the book of the wars of the Israelites, as it is written in the book of Shemaiah the prophet, as it is written in the book of Edu the prophet, as it is written in Enoch. Hold on, who is Shemaiah? Who is Edu the prophet? As it is written in the book of Samuel the seer. Hold on. Like, who are these? Who is Edu? Who is Shemaiah, and where are their books? The Bible quotes it. The Bible is quoting these other texts that cannot be found. Only a few. There's a few of them that Jubilees, and there's a bunch of them that were inspired and were around that aren't mentioned. But let's deal with the books that are mentioned. Enoch is one of those books. Jubilees is one of those books. The sun, as it is written in the book of Jubilees, I think it is, the sun stood still. And then we get that story about the sun standing still. I believe it's Jubilees. And there's a lot of stuff in there, just opens you up. So it's not about getting bored with the Bible. It's about being fascinated with the Bible.
Yeah, right.
It's quoting these other texts. Why? What does it say? Why did they take it out? And it just starts snowballing, and say, man, and then you have to, it opens the door. But to have that in front of you, and I know, because it's kind of scary, is venturing out, and I don't know if I should read this. My pastor said no, that kind of stuff, Yeah. Book of Jasher, Christy says. Yeah, Book of Jasher. I said Jubilees. Well, Jubilees and Jasher are both books, yeah. But it's deep.
Something did happen in David and Solomon in the Bible. When you actually know and you go back and you start looking at the way David spoke and Solomon spoke, David, God doesn't delight in sacrifices. Well, isn't that your culture? Hasn't that been going on for a long time? And even with Solomon, there's a black magic book I tried to read, and it was the same time I kind of was going through my phase with this, getting into the Colburn and the other books, but I couldn't read it, and I still have it. But it was a very dark book by Solomon.
Do you think it was by Solomon though? A lot of times, you'll find. I do think that there are books out there that
I'm pretty sure this one was authentic.
Okay, you think it's authentic?
Yeah, because we can talk about it another time. But
yeah. Well, I mean,
my spirit couldn't do it, even though I was trying to see. You know what I mean? So I put it down. I started reading it, and I was like, "This is kind of black, man."
Yeah.
But I might read it today, and maybe I'll see it in a different light, because I've evolved a lot. And
I mean, that's good to note too, because as we're talking about the Book of Enoch and how beautiful it is and how powerful it is, that people are going to try to find it, and they're going to find the keys of Enoch. Right, yes. And they're going to find these magical spells written of in the keys of Enoch on how to summon angels and all this stuff. And the same thing within
that's what the book was about with Solomon.
Yeah, the keys of Solomon. You have the keys of Solomon and the keys of Enoch. I haven't read either one. I know what's in them. I've only read little pieces. It's different for you guys listening. It's different than the Book of Enoch and the Testament of Solomon.
Yeah,
both are. Definitely go hand. If you want to understand the spirit realm, if you want to understand the Bible, you need both of those books.
Yeah,
I say that with authority, like you really do. There's terms and phrases and demons that are mentioned that they're only mentioned of in those books, and Jesus is talking about them openly, and we don't have no reference point but those books.
Yep, that's because religion more or less did not want us to know that we were here due to a creator God.
And that you have influence and you can communicate with those beings. Like, if you can communicate with the beings, God, if you can communicate with God, I mean, that was their thing. You can't communicate with God. You have to go to the priest, and he communicates with God for you. You have to go to your pastor. You have to go to your leadership, go to your elder. But Jesus, his whole thing was like, look, I'm ripping all this veil down. I'm tearing up what y'all trying to build, keeping people away from their Father. and I'm going to bridge the gap between you and the Father. You have access to him through what I've done, what I've shown you, what I'm, the work that I've laid out. And that's what he did. He tore the veil that separated mere men from going to their creator. And that's like, people are saying like, Jesus is like, for control, and they wrote the Bible to control us. Like, that's, you know what I'm saying? That's straight liberation, tearing down the wall that you have to go to a pastor, you have to go to a shaman, or like, trust me, there's times for that, right? We need those leaders. We need shamans. We need priests at times in our lives, somebody who is in tune with the spirit, prophets, preachers, teachers, evangelists. We need those people who are seasoned, but you can just look within and go straight to the Father. And that's what they've taken out of the books. That's what they've taken, the angelic contact that you can, there's books by angels, supposedly, the book of Gabriel, some deep stuff in that. I don't know if you've checked that out, but there's some really interesting stuff that they've taken out, and all of it is to take the power away from the individual and give it to the church. Give the power to the church, that you have to submit to the authority. You can't go to God by yourself. That kind of stuff.
They've done a really good job. Think about it. People are starting to wake up. That's why we have a torch to carry, you and I, and many of others, and those listening. We have an aggressive youth right now, meaning that we've come through. I was born in 73, man. I came out through the 70s and 80s, did the religion phase and stuff like that. And I learned a truth, man. And we carry a torch, and we're meant to be the same character that we have been studying and loving and abiding within. And I think we hold the responsibility of passing that on to other generations, because honestly, the church is declining. It seems like it has to be. I hear kids saying about
losing its power. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think and all of us kind of that are listening here, because I know a lot of us have similar ideals, there's something bigger and better going on, that it still can be a community like that. Same with your class on Thursday nights. You know what I mean? I so look forward to plugging in and being a part of it. I miss the fellowships and the Bible studies and the teaching.
Exactly. You have to replace it.
I met with somebody this week about being in the Rosicrucians, coming out of the Masonry. I like the initiations. I like symbolism. I love learning. And I find out most of this,
ritual.
Yeah. And most of it's online teaching, which is great. But I do personally like the church setting, you know what I mean? Meaning that you get together with brothers and sisters and, can hold each other's hands and pray, can delve deeper into things, get some real spiritual movement within, where you are, I am also, and that part, I want us to, people like you and I, be able to grow and expand upon, and, give people a place to go, other than telling people to get the heck out. There's a fire. You know what I mean? It's like, we need to be able to create something that brings people in and makes them feel welcome.
We're having
not by making a religion out of it, but by having fellowship.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's tricky, because I'm doing that now, 100% doing that. And it's still tricky because even in those circles, you had a leader. I may be an overseer. I'm not at the top of the pinnacle. I'm helping create this stuff. But there's other people who are coming. There's other people. This is how our hierarchy really works in the body of Christ. It's sideways. There's no pastor. We all look up to him. No. So a lot of the guys who have done that, a lot of teachers and preachers and gurus and shamans, we can name them. They've built a community, but the community is around them. And I'm trying to consciously, step away, but be there. But like, I'm not the guy. You know what I'm saying? Yes, I'm orchestrating things and running it, but it's not about me being the teacher.
Yep.
And I'm consciously doing that. So you can't say that, oh, you guys, you have all these followers. I don't have any followers. Like, if anybody sees anything good in me, it's because of what Christ has done, right? It's because that I'm connected and tuned in, and they have to tune in. If they're just listening to this as the knowledge part, as a spectator, I really believe that they're doing it wrong. If they're not going to, They don't all have to do the work themselves. They don't all have to get into Enoch. They don't all have to stargaze and see that. Like, they don't all have to do that. That's the of learning from one another, that we've done that. We can bring it back and we can share it openly and give them the power as well. But it's really interesting in creating the community because it's easy to be put on a pedestal. It's easy. And I've got people who have done it and they're drunk off of their own praises. I've been there as a Christian rapper, like back in the day, and the applauses of men are intoxicating. So I'm conscious of that moving forward, man. And it's beautiful and it's possible. You know what I'm saying? We're in a really good place, man. And thank you for believing in it, and everybody listening. There's a bunch of people listening live to commenting. Chris Bars is saying what's up to you. He wants to let you know he's watching. And he's telling you to hop on Discord. Discord's a chat client that we use to get in conversation and prayer and just lift each other up when we're having a bad day and have questions and need an encouraging word. Like, it's a chat program through text and also voice chat too. That's awesome, man. And it's like it's creating that community. So if you got a few minutes, jump on there. There's a couple people in conversation. They throwing ideas about the Bible, about the Gita, about other whatever it is. We don't have it all figured out. You know what I'm saying? And we're okay with that. There's things that you stand upon. There's things that you know. But it's like, look, and I always say, run from those people, man. Run from the people who say this is like they have an answer for everything. Like they got it all figured out. They're lying. Yep. They are lying to you. I can tell you some things that I've encountered that they know nothing about. And I'm not saying it about me, because the next person, they know things that I don't know. And it's about coming together and understanding the true spirit of unity. That's what it's about, coming together with all of our experiences, with all of our pieces of the puzzle. There's things we don't agree on. There's things that we're going to butt heads on or whatever, but that's cool. Like, if it's not worth dying over, it's not worth losing a friend or being an asshole over, like I'm not going to do it, right? I'm going to walk in grace and peace, and let's build together, unless it's dangerous stuff or whatever the case is that people are bringing to the table. That's my rant about community and stuff.
The sad thing is that I found out that everybody that I knew from the body, from the church, for many, many years, for those almost 20 years, was mainly reliant on my relationship with their God, Jesus. When I didn't subscribe to that, they didn't want anything to do with me. I was, able to be thrown out. That's why I'm sure you deal with it too. It's kind of died down, but I would have people check in through Messenger every once in a while. Yo, man, are you still saved? You still believe in Jesus? And I'm just like, if somebody comes up to me today, anybody, and they ask me that question, I will say no. That's not the truth. But I will say no, because that's what they want to hear. That's what they want to know. That's all they're relying on.
I'm an enigma, though. I love being and like a whole enigma. I'll talk the good talk. Like, they know that I'm like you. I know the Bible better than them. That's why they never came to us, bro. Do you know that?
Yeah, I know.
Because you know it better. They're intimidated. They were scared to bring correction to you, because you would have handled them with the scriptures. Yep. And we've had to put up with that. That's a part of being that's a harsher judgment that you're judged with for being a teacher, being someone who's studied. It's part of it. Yeah. They have a term for it. It's called ghosting. They used to call it excommunicated from the body. You're ghosted. Just stay away from him.
Ghosting, I hear you.
Don't talk to him. He'll fade away. That kind of stuff.
Yeah,
but
right.
It's hard. People are going through it. We went through it. And there's so much to say about it, man. And if that's the only reason this show exists, it's for a really good reason, to help people who have been excommunicated, or people who like to have a beer and they love Jesus. Oh, no, you can't drink, brother. You're a drunkard. Drunkards won't inherit the kingdom. And they get rid of you, and you're just like, because you believe something different and you're okay with that, you're authentic, and you got excommunicated and kicked out. There's so many people, bro. This show caters to those people, which are people who are in the church, who love God with all their heart, mind, soul, and strength. They love God. They love Christ with everything, but they're different, but they're outcasts, but they hear spirits, but they see aliens, but they love, Marilyn Manson. I don't know, whatever it is. Like, they're different. It's something that doesn't shift with them, so they're not part of the body. They're made fun of, all kind of little weird tactics or whatever. It's for those people. You can be whoever God created you to be. You can like that stuff. as long as it's healthy, good stuff. We don't want to promote, people being okay with bad stuff, that it's stuff that's killing them, right? We want to help them. And then on the other hand, it caters to people who are into the New Age, who are into Gnosis, but there's something more. I've studied all the Gnosis. I've read all the books. I've done it all. TruthSeekah, what is it that you have that I don't have? What is it, bro? I'm doing all the stuff. Okay, you get it. Let me show you what it is. And I can pray with that person to receive the Holy Spirit, to receive the infilling of Christ, and have that personal, tangible relationship where it all becomes real. It becomes real, and all the knowledge and everything clicks and makes sense. Damn. I've been a part of that. That's amazing. That's why I put up with the ridicule, the laughing. Oh, you guys are channeling aliens. You guys are, going outside the Bible because you're tired of the Bible, huh? And all the just stuff over the years. I'm being funny, but it's very hard, but it's worth it. It's always worth it. And to encourage people to keep on keeping on, no matter, it's going to be worth it in the end. It really is. If you don't give up and you're faithful and you stick with it. Dude. Yeah.
18 years in the building and 5, 6, 7 years outside. We haven't been to church in 2 to 3 years now. Well, actually more. Well, I mean, physically, it was weird because we went for Christmas last year, which I used to sit in the pews and scoff at all the people coming in at Easter and Christmas. And now I'm one of them. But however, I have never, even though I was alive and passionate and doing so many ministries in the church, I still went to the church for that filling. I didn't have the one-on-one relationship that I do with God today.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I sit here with you. I walk around. I drive around. I am constantly. I'm a modern philosopher. A lot of people meditate. I haven't completely got there yet. I think on my feet and I talk to God while I'm constantly moving in all things. And it doesn't have to show up at praise and worship. It doesn't have to show up at a sermon. It doesn't have to be in a body. My life with God is becoming just what Jesus asked and what he kind of portrayed. He just walked.
Love.
He was the image of the Father. You've seen me. You've seen the Father.
Yeah.
That's what my aim is. And that's where my faith and my walk have got to these days. I mean, it's beautiful. I mean, more than anybody else, I kind of kid with my children about it sometimes, but I was ready to die a couple years back. I've seen the glory. I have nothing left here except to give of myself to other people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's nothing else I need. And I'm not holding on to anything anymore. And it's just so beautiful where I'm at. And I can have my Jesus, my teachings, and, love God, love the Great Spirit, love Allah, love whoever you want to call him. We're all worshiping the same one, sadly enough, with all the divisions, and as children, we just need to be able to serve humanity and be there for each other. And it's just so lost because there's just so many denominations and divisions. And that's why I feel blessed I'm a writer, because I have these 2 books I wrote. So one day, my great-great-grandkids are going to be like, what did Grandfather Zinszer write about? And I feel like I'm doing my family line a favor by enabling them to see something that not everybody would bring to them.
Yeah.
And I tell my kids all the time, if anything ever happens to me, I don't even say my books. I actually say the Colburn. I said, if anything ever happens to me, please do me a favor and read the Colburn.
Yeah, man.
Beyond blessing. So,
conscious of it.
It's the path, man. It really is. And I choose, we were talking about it way early in the conversation about, not to say there isn't a heaven or hell, so to speak, that we find those things within ourselves. The Hermetic teaching is what I always feel good about, is literally good returns to good.
Yeah.
Bad returns to bad, man. You can't fake it, I have things I struggle with. And I think about, if my life was to flash before my eyes, what would I see? Would I be happy with it? Did I serve? Did I love? It's really simple. It's not judgment. It's not criticism. It's not hating people that don't believe what you believe. It's loving humanity and moving on from this earth plane, man. And hopefully you get it right that, if you choose, you don't come back, A lot of people came back, and people don't believe in that, but we have Elijah who's promising to come back. We got a lot of reincarnations. So I just think I just want to get it right, man. You know, I really do. It's that.
Yeah. At the end of the day, I'm with you on that. You know, at the end of the day, over it all, it's all love that you helped. Because you got to look, you know what I'm saying, 50 years from now, 60 years. I don't know how much longer we have, you know, we're not promised tomorrow, but you want to be able to look back and say, okay, did I do something that mattered? Did I contribute? Did somebody who's having a bad day, a bad life, did I help them? Whatever it may have been, a beautiful song in my case that takes them on a journey, lets them know that God hasn't forgot about them, let them know that there's more to life than just whatever, you know, through these podcasts, whatever. I mean, that's just something, but to be a friend, you know what I'm saying? To be a good father, a good husband, and just learning what those things are and being the best that you can be. And when you do mess up, and you know that you messed up, that's for you can learn. You know what I'm saying?
I always tell my kids that.
And you know what I'm saying? You can evolve and be that better version of yourself. I do think that that's going to last. What else is going to last? What else can we do to bring? I know we could try to go big or go home. I think I'm going big. I think you're contributing something pretty big, pretty significant that has the power to shape the world, one person at a time, you know, those type of deals. But I think that's what in the end is going to stand, that love, man. Whatever's built upon love. I don't care what religion, what it sounds like, what it looks like, as long as it's love.
Yep. And Revelation speaks about that, about, you know, what I think it's Revelation. What remains is the gold. Yeah.
The wood, hay, and stubble being burnt up. Yeah.
Yeah. And to me, I always envision that, well, not always, but anyway.
I do too. Yeah.
As astral, going through the earth plane, just like the space shuttle, man. It has to have.
Being burnt up to ascend. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So to me, it really makes sense, you know, and, you know, love is the key. And I know that it's cliche, but it doesn't matter, man. It's what keeps me alive. It's what keeps tears rolling down my face when I can't quite comprehend the wickedness of this world.
Yeah.
Actually, it's kind of funny because me and my wife just got The Green Mile this week. Did you ever watch it? Yeah, dude. Good. I haven't watched it in a long time because even as tears try to come out of my eyes right now, I beg God to take my sensitivity away, because I couldn't talk to people. Even at school when I got in fights, it's like I'd beat someone up and I'd get in the principal's office and like, why do you do it? And I just start crying. I'd all the mess. I'm like, I don't know. So when I watched The Green Mile the one night, back in like 2000, 2001, my best friend was dying of cancer. And I went outside of my mom's house, had a cigarette and said, God, please, 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 please take these tears from my face. I can't talk to people. I can't witness. I just didn't feel like I can function being so in that situation. And honestly, dude, 17, 18 years, it's removed, dude. I have people come and go. I have people die. I have some really weird situations that you think Tait would cry. It doesn't even get close to my mind, dude, because everything's temporal.
Time is something else, bro. Like, time has this way of dealing with people and changing people. You know, and knowing, I guess maybe time brings it into perspective that you don't live forever in this flesh here. It brings things into perspective. It heals, and man, time is something else, man. You know, I love change and stability, but I hate to see hardships and people struggle and time just beat people up, man. And I think that, you know, the foundation that we have and it's practical. You know, it's not just in theory. It's not just conspiracy theory or whatever. It's truth. It's like stuff it's going to help you be a better person, and it's going to help people. And that's what matters, man. It really does.
Yeah. And you know what, bro? You probably saw the post recently, but, you know, I haven't known a lot about the Palestinian and Israel situation because being a Christian, I was taught to stand behind Israel, and they can't do no wrong. So anyway, just real quick, let's talk about times and moments in life. Back in May, I became friends with several Palestinians that were reaching out like the Lakota did with Standing Rock. They started reaching out to people that they didn't know to say, hey, there's something going on here. We need help, man. The world needs to see this. And there was a moment where there was a widow of the age of 23 that has a 3-year-old daughter. her husband was actually killed in 2014 war conflict over there. So she was actually living with her husband's family. And I don't know enough about it and I don't want to get into it, but I imagine that woman in this household of her husband's family, and she told me so, they don't care if I live or die. So she's living in her ex-husband's her husband's house with his family and her daughter. And I said to her, Amen, what can I do? If you can go, would you go? She said, yes. It was a time. I quickly got out to Facebook. I had the money to cover it, but I love getting people involved too. There's a lot of people that do want to do good works, and it actually worked. I got a good amount of contributions, but it cost about $1,100 to get her and her daughter safely across the border. Now, I do have other families that we sponsor out in South Dakota monthly, so I did have to take from that to take care of her. But it was a moment in time. She's now living in Giza with her mother's family, and bombs aren't being dropped on her head every night. Even her roof came in the one night when I was talking to her. So it's just a moment in time. And when you see these people suffering, it's like you got to have a heart to get in there and help them,
Yeah.
And I didn't know what to do. Like I said, I could have done it myself, but I chose to, get a few friends involved, and, some did come through and it was a blessing. Other people turned. It's all good. It's my ministry. God put it on my heart. You know what I mean? So that's where I work. But it's like that moment in time. You can change a whole lineage, in one person, in one family, just by rescuing them. And it's beautiful to be a part of. Now we just talk, and it's weird for her as a Muslim to talk to an American, but we do. You know what I mean? Yeah. We're like brother and sister. She considers me her dad now.
Oh, wow.
Because I'm old.
There's a song out right now. It's a Christian song by Michael W. No, it's by Matthew West. And it's the song starts off. It says, talking about he's shaking his fist at heaven. God, look at all the wars. Look at all the starving children. Look at all the poverty, violence, and all this stuff. Why won't you do something about it? Like, that's the song. Why won't you do something about it? Why won't you come down here and stop all this stuff? He says, I did. Like, I created you. I sent you to go out there and to you know what I'm saying, help these people and be the gospel says, like, to go out and be the hands and feet of God, that we are God's workmanship in Christ Jesus, created to do good works, to go out there, and that's the fruit of your hope, and that's the the faith in action. It proves what you believe versus theory. You believe Jesus is God or he's the Son of God. Get out of my face with that. Like, just go out there and be Jesus. Let's quit debating about who he is. What did he mean? Did he exist? Whatever. There's a time and place for that, but you have to be him, man.
When Jesus became man, he became God to me. That's the way I saw it. So when I took him off and Jesus became man, he became God to me. Because who would do that?
Living, yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what really changed with me. And it's very
wow.
powerful.
When it became a man, it became God. Yeah, that's deep. I can see that.
True. For me, it's true.
Yeah.
And that's with these books and like what I do and stuff like that. It's all great, but honestly, I don't have any reservations for my success. I really want to become successful, that I could help other people and use my money to help families around the world. Connected in Kenya now, definitely have the Palestinian connection, Honduras, as you know, going down into Peru and out in South Dakota. It's just like there's so many people we can choose to help or be there for. And, I'm glad God has my heart bent like that.
If you could do all that by yourself, man, just imagine, like, people, they want to help, they want to get involved, but they don't think they can do anything, that their voice isn't loud enough, or they don't have enough money. I always talk about the fact that I've got the dude who led me to the Lord and their little group of people that they still run with. They were on this weird prosperity gospel stuff, and they believe that God wanted them to be.
I remember.
They were supposed to be the wealth of the wicked is stored up for the righteous, and God created them to be millionaires. The transfer hasn't happened yet. You don't have to work for it. You don't have to build it. You don't have to use the gifts he's given you. You just have to wait on it. God's going to set you up. They believed in that, and they would always talk about how they wanted to open up orphanages and feed the hungry and do all of this stuff whenever they won the lottery. Like, they believed that they was going to win the lottery, or a pastor would call them and say, hey, we got $50,000. They just, these weird faith things that kind of go on in the church or whatever. I remember I used to think that the pastor was going to step down and just ask me to preach one morning or something out of the congregation. There's a lot of people believe that. It's probably never going to happen. And there's people like waiting on these weird, ridiculous things. If you want to preach, go out and preach. Do it. Like share your story. You don't have to wait for permission anymore. You know what I'm saying? But they were wanting to wait on help people when they win the lottery. It's like, if God can't trust you with the few, he's not going to make you ruler over more. That's a principle, to be a good steward with what he's already given you. You want to feed the hungry? Like, you could do that for like $5 on like Wednesdays. Like Sonic has a special where they sell 25-cent hamburgers. And we would go up and we get a big bag of hamburgers. And we just go out and feed. And it was like 2 or 3 people. And we do that together. But they're like, yeah, man, when God blesses me, when I win the lottery, I'm going to help the homeless and we're going to feed the orphans and widows and be the hands and feet of Jesus. Like, if you're not doing it now, he's not, you're not going to do anything when he gives you that money. You're going to pay bills and pay your debts and all that kind of stuff. But if you're doing it now, if you're busy, if he comes back and finds you working, like the parables talk about, that's what he's supposed to be doing. You come back, y'all in here having Bible studies and like debating each other. Yeah. Right. Come back later. We're busy. But anyway, we're getting kind of sentimental here. We're talking about the root behind what we do and stuff. And it is very sentimental because we've put up with a lot of stuff in order to come out victorious on the other side. But going back to the book, there was one thing that I wanted to ask you about and just kind of bring up the notion about the Aquarian gospel. And this is about another man's revelation through meditation, through prayer, whatever, having these encounters with Jesus and receiving information from the Akashic records, which we can tap into ourselves, like you said. And he comes out with this good work, telling people how to do good deeds and be a better person and tap in and stuff like that. There's a lot of people who come out with this book. So someone in church would see this and say, hey, like you said, hey man, that's another gospel, bro. They're bringing another gospel. Then Jesus warned us of that. Paul warned us of another gospel, these type of things. But if we look at Paul, if we look at Joseph Smith, if we look at Muhammad, and all these other people, they all had these encounters with white light, with angelic beings who received their calling, who received their message. And a lot of Christians want to like lump Paul in a different category as Muhammad, or Paul in a different category as Joseph Smith. But essentially he's riding on the back of a horse and has an encounter with a white light who eventually says was Jesus. And we have those encounters. We write books inspired by similar encounters. What's the difference? Why, can you see the similarity there?
Well, I can. And like you said, it's like some people will recognize one, but not the other. It's the way it's always been, because this is what it is, or this is the word of God, or they were told such. It's like they accept it, but someone else comes in with a similar idea and it's not the same thing. People do it all the time, and one of the great things about the Aquarian gospel, I think it's a synopsis of all the gospels together. I'm pretty sure it's the best gospel that's ever been written, period. It'll tie all the other ones together with the missing years in Jesus' life. It has him going into India, has him going China, has him going into Greece, and it all makes sense. It really does. It brings Joseph of Arimathea in as his uncle, as the rightful man, being his Mary's brother, to bring in when Joseph died. He was the next father in line, the uncle, through Jewish.
Wait. Are you saying that Joseph was Jesus's father?
No. Wait. Oh, you mean Joseph? Yeah, probably. Sounds good.
I'll believe that.
I'll tell you my favorite gospel though. Not my favorite gospel. I'm sorry. My favorite line, and I'm probably going to do this book too because I have already done it. The Gospel of Marcion, where the Gospel of Luke has come from, starts out with, in the year of Augustus Caesar, blah blah blah. Jesus came down into Jerusalem. It's my favorite line. I'm fine with that too. I'm fine with Jesus coming down.
I like that.
Yeah. So let me just back that up a little bit. All right. I'm more with Jesus coming down than, a flesh birth, but it's all good.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I don't need to really, honestly, I don't need to figure that one out right now. So
it's interesting. I've studied it on both sides and got some good stuff on it.
Yep. Well, I mean, he constantly talks about his siblings and stuff like that.
Well, he talked about his father. He called Joseph his father. Everybody said Joseph was his father.
Yep.
But then if you
that's why his name's Yeshua ben Joseph. Son of,
Yeshua ben Joseph, the son of Joseph.
Man. So I am on that side. I don't want to come away from it. I think when you asked me the question, I was thinking biblically and how it's brought up.
I say that because like that's if you was to bring even that thing up, let's just take that, right? That revelation of Joseph being Jesus' father. Go to churches and tell them that. See what happens.
Oh, of course.
That when in Romans, it talks about that Jesus is the seed from the seed of David according to the flesh. The seed, we know what the seed is. It's the man's man's sperm. Yeah, the seed. Yeah. And there's so many instances. And I come to that revelation and doing a lot of studying, and you vocal about that. Like that's a no-no.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? It's little things like that. We've gone over about 2 hours and 20 minutes. I'm cool with that. A little bit. One last thing that I wanted to ask you, because we talked about it before we went live, but you've been taking a lot of trips lately. You got a lot more trips coming up. One of the trips I wanted to ask you about, you just went to Contact in the desert. Yep. I just want to say lucky.
It was cool, man. It was cool. I was caught between Aliens Con and Contact.
He was back and forth.
Giorgio and Eric Von Daniken, they were a trip for me, man. I spent half the time in Joshua Tree National Park and the other time hanging out with Giorgio and Eric Von Daniken. They're just the forerunners of this movement.
Ancient aliens, yeah.
Yeah, so it's all cool, man. There was something else going on out there that I was warned about, and I didn't like.
Greer? No, Greer wasn't there.
No. Come on. Who's the biggest Gaia guy?
David Wilcock.
Yes, thank you. Yes, there was a David Wilcock's fan base cult out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know a lot of people get into it and stuff like that.
I used to until he took it. I used to. He took it too far left though, with Corey Good and all these guys, and he took it too far left, man.
Yeah, it wasn't until the second lecture that I had some groupies next to me and how they were just ecstatic and like I swore I was at a Metallica concert or something like that. That I realized there's something else going on. And I know a lot of stuff that he talks about, but the way he presented it was not far-fetched, but just like matter of fact. Everything was a matter of fact. It wasn't even speculation.
Yeah.
And I realized this crowd and group, if it keeps going that direction, it won't be appealing to me. But with Giorgio there and Von Daniken and stuff like that, that's who I went to go see. It was awesome. The people were really good. It was kind of like getting out of Woodstock. Not completely. It was a mixed group. But the first night I came in, Thursday and Friday, the people were just so pleasant. Something changed when the groupies came in. You can tell there's just something different, but it's all good. He played a huge role in my awakening. I mean, I found 2012 Enigma in 2011, 2010. That's a lot of hard work, man. And I barely know anything about him, but obviously, if he touched you and helped you out
early on, I love a lot of his work, and but like I said, he went way. Someone here is talking about he's gotten real arrogant. Someone says in the chat. Somebody else is talking about Greer here. They said, one look at Greer, you just know. Greer, I followed Greer's work early on too, but then, they went too far left, man. And Greer taking that little thing saying it was an alien and it probably an aborted fetus, like all kinds of crazy stuff. And they're just taking it far left as they can. And the Corey Good thing is what done it for me. And he's a big name because Wilcock vouched for him and kind of raised him up. It just gets so far out there. It's hard to believe. Like, we're trying to find truth, right? We're truth seekers, right? Like, who's telling the truth and who's making it up as they go? There's a lot of those people and they're really good at it, And
that's the thing. Some of them were definitely on to like the conspiracy theory end of it, the Space Force, all this
Space
stuff.
Pants,
But then Giorgio and Eric are about the ancient sites and what do they tell us about
physical stuff versus
where
theory,
we came from, who we are, and who these gods were. The cargo cults. And they can take you places that you can actually discover and learn for yourself. And, you know, kind of what Ancient Aliens mostly does, the show. And it brings you into being a part of it because they don't know it all. They can show it to you, but they're learning too. And they write books and they, you know, they bring it in front of you and try to help explain what they understand from it. But they're kind of bringing the ancient civilization. I think if we know our roots and we know where we came from and how powerful we truly are, it'll change humanity forever. We've been held down and crushed by religion for thousands of years now. And it's time we all stand up in the light, man. It's time for our children's sake. I mean, that's the biggest thing, man. I don't want my children going through this world the way it's set up. I think we're very powerful individuals, and I've learned to train my brain over the last 5 to 6 years to be a beautiful person, to be a good person, and do better without sitting in church every Sunday and reading your Bible, because I read it a million times. I get it, you know. So it's just like now it's just in me, and I am the person that can change the world. Period. Yeah. And I think we all have that potential, and some of us are leaders and some aren't. Some of us are servants. And I'll tell you, I make a heck of a lot better servant than I do a leader, because if someone else is doing the harder part of the work and they need someone to serve and finish the job, dude, I am golden.
Everybody has a place, man. And like knowing what you're good at, playing, you know what I'm saying, playing to your strengths and knowing what you're good at and getting there and doing it.
Yep, exactly.
It's a team, bro. It's a body.
It is, man. It is.
Body.
That's why I love you, man, because it's just like, you know, how I found you, what I spoke about is intriguing to me, because I waited a while, and then when something didn't look right, I dove in, and now here you and I are sitting talking.
you dove in when the controversy hit.
That's right.
Oh man, let's check it. We'll find this dirt. TruthSeekah exposed. Let's look it up.
No, because I side with the people, man. I side with what's good or what feels right, and sometimes it isn't always 100% good. Sometimes I just feel bad for people, and I get it. You know what I mean? But it wasn't like that with you. It was like, I don't like following people. I never did. I can walk beside them. I can be with them, but. So when I saw what you were doing, it was so creative, and so you were doing so much, I couldn't wrap my head around it because of the person showing it to me. And then when I had an opportunity to remove that person and just look at you, I saw Derek, and I wanted to know Derek, because I was like, wow, look what this guy's doing, man. He's out there getting busy, so creative, and it's just, I'm impressed, man. There's not a lot of people like you out there, and even your humble beginnings. I want to show my wife last night again. I think I did already. I have a problem with my memory, but your humble beginnings and stuff like that. And I see that stuff.
That picture, yeah, man. That's crazy.
It is. It blows my mind. I want to know more, man. I'm totally intrigued, because to me, it's like wow. You're like, if it looks the way it looks, you're one of the greatest success stories I know.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
And we're still early.
What's that?
And we're still early in.
Yeah, we're
just getting started.
Yeah.
Bigger things coming, man. You know? Beautiful. Yeah, dude. There was, and you know what I'm saying? Thank you, by the way, right? And,
of course, man. Of course.
You actually went to another event recently. You went and seen the Ozman himself, right?
I was going to wear the shirt. Oh my God. Yes, I did.
How was that? Was that your first time seeing him, and how was that?
Well, yeah, it was. Yeah, actually, it's weird because I missed the Black Sabbath Wasp concert somewhere in the 80s or 90s. So that was like the closest I ever got. And I never saw Ozzy. And I, like you and me talked on the side, I was totally anti-secular. Rebecca St. James, Rich Mullins.
Exactly. I've seen her. I've seen Rebecca St. James.
All this stuff, dude. You know, so going back, I'm 45 now. So right around 40, I went back to my roots and went and saw Testament and Anthrax on my 40th birthday of my sister. And since then, I've been slowly getting my feet back in. But what the difference is, I used to go to these concerts and feel dirty, feel like, oh my God, these are all losers. You know, people getting drunk and doing their thing, doing drugs and whatever else. And, you know, I'd rip people apart. Well, now that twice born and through the religious part of it, wow, dude, the things that I enjoy about this music and these bands, I can walk into an Ozzy concert and it was a clean concert. Most of us are old. I was actually young.
Exactly. Yeah.
But But it's just like I can enjoy what I enjoy and what I want to receive, and everything else just kind of I don't rip apart anymore. And actually, it's a bed of flowers. Really, it's really changed my. I went better than Ozzy, dude. I went to go see Panic at the Disco back in July.
Oh wow!
My daughter drugged me to it down in Philadelphia, dude. I've never met a performer like Panic at the Disco, and I watched these kids. I mean, dude, think about it. Average age about maybe 16, 17.
Yeah.
20,000 screaming girls, almost all girls, dude. And the Slayer, the one guy walked through and he said, "God loves Slayer." He had on his shirt, and I was just like, "Yo, man!" And we were talking a little bit, but they blew me away. You want to talk about a performer? He's such a performer. He doesn't even have a band, and I'm learning about them. I don't know if you know about Panic, but that was a concert, man. That was
He doesn't have a band?
No,
I didn't know that.
Really.
My wife and daughter are like diehard Panic fans.
Yeah,
he's by himself. Is it just going to tracks?
Well, I guess maybe the band has been with him for 1 or 2 albums. My daughter can fast track me a lot better because I'm still.
The Duke can sing too, man. He could do like
but
crazy.
He's changed songwriter. The guy that sung the songs now he's a songwriter. He's out of the band, but I mean he can go from the drums to the piano to the guitar. I think it's the guitar. Maybe not the guitar. I'm not going to say that. To his voice, oh God! But he's like the ultimate performer, and he came out of religion, and that's why I am so interested in Brendan. Is because he talks about his mom in his songs a lot, and he talks about religion. And this was the "Pray for the Wicked" tour, and whatever happened and his angle, it's really awesome, man. It's really cool, and that's why I'm kind of like bouncing in his direction because that night. I know you go out to concerts and stuff like that. I'm sure you have one of those concert nights that you just will never forget. I mean, it was so amazing that I wanted to go to DC or Buffalo to see
Tool.
him. Sorry. We're on Panic stand. But anyway, don't want to take away from the Ozzy concert.
No, hey, all of that stuff,
yeah,
dude. I got tickets here to go see Need to Breathe.
Oh, okay, cool, man.
The Christian group. Well, I don't know if they're really Christian anymore. They get mainstream success. I think they're still Christian, but
cool.
we're going to see them. But yeah, man.
But even with Ozzy, I mean, the symbolizations there with the cross, the whole concert, you know what I mean? It's like, it's his theme, and you know the old Black Sabbath songs and things, and
yeah,
you know when you
Mr.
find out
Crowley.
people,
How did he do though? Like, was it it wasn't cringy because he's getting
Ozzy?
old?
No,
Yeah, he's getting old.
It was awesome. Yeah, no, dude, he was dead on. And the funny thing is, I know from either his wife or someone else that he has to have a monitor in front of him with his music, with his lyrics on, because he doesn't remember them all anymore. So I know he's going through that too, that he just can't get up there and sing like most performers. That sometimes he's going to be 70 this year. He just needs to kind of go back and more or less he's doing karaoke with his own songs and making like but no, he hasn't lost his touch. I'm sad they didn't play Flying High Again or Over the Mountain.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm really bummed out about that. But other than that,
Well, they played Crowley though, man. They got a man, dude. That song he did with Lena Ford, is that her name?
Lena Ford?
Is that her name? Yeah, the song he did with her. I think that's her name.
Yeah, of course. Yep.
Beautiful song. Yeah,
I don't know if you saw the esoteric photo I took of Crowley when he got on. I did a little bit of the video, but I took a picture of his background. I put it on Facebook. Dude, it was the most esoteric image I've ever seen in my life, man. It blew me away, and people were going gaga on Facebook about it because it was powerful, dude. It was glowing. It was awesome, man. I'll send it to you later in case you missed it. But yeah, it was awesome. It kind of shocked me. I wasn't ready for it, and I saw it, and I was like, damn.
Close my eyes forever. Yeah, that's what Jeff is in the chat. Jeff Miller.
Even Yazman cometh, man. Even Yazman knows God, man. Let it go.
Yeah, some kind of he knows it. Yeah, there's some of that good stuff, man. And it's all about the nostalgia, man. Like going there and feeling like, dude, I just went back 20 years or 10 years or whatever it is. Like we went. My wife got me tickets 2 years ago now to go see Power Man 5000 in Orgy in Atlanta. And I was,
really?
I'm like diehard new metal, Korn and Cold Chamber, those guys. So yeah, it was awesome. Yeah, it was awesome to see those guys. Like started listening to them when I was 13, and finally getting to go see them. I was gonna go see Manson and Rob Zombie in Atlanta, but Manson hasn't even been showing up to the majority of his shows at this point.
Nice.
And it's kind of sad though. That's what I was wanting to know, because like it's kind of sad to see Manson where he is now. He's overweight. Some performances are good. Sometimes he's half drunk. You know what I'm saying? It just seems kind of it's kind of sad to see, because if you look at old Manson from '93 versus Manson now, like that was something to appreciate. Now you can look back on it and just see the performance and the Alice Cooper-esque, the stage performance that now is just like, which a lot of people that's showing up collecting checks and just running through their material, and they got random people playing their instruments, and you know, it's something about that the nostalgia for me definitely, but the creative aspect behind music and creating stuff and bringing it to the table. We went and seen Metallica as well, and that was amazing. I mean, they just put out their new album, and it's just that was the only time we've seen them. Metallica, Tool. So I was crying at the Tool concert, bro. Like,
Tool's cool, man. They got an angle, man.
Oh, I was crying. I was sitting there crying, dude. They got that song Parable that's talking about spirits having a conversation before they come to earth and agreeing to this life and coming out here and to be, you know what I'm saying, incarnated. And it's like to catch you in your pain and your hurt and the failure and stuff you go through. Is like, be okay. All the pain is an illusion. We are eternal beings. We're going to go back to where we came from. And it's like just the beauty of that. I cried, man. It was beautiful. Good stuff.
Yeah,
Maynard is awesome, dude. Maynard's
really
new stuff with a perfect circle. Oh my God.
What's that?
Maynard's new stuff with a perfect circle that he's put out. The new stuff.
Yeah.
Have you heard it?
Nuh-uh.
Bro. Most of it's about Jesus.
Realm a little bit, but
most of it's about Jesus, and it's good stuff, man. I'm gonna send it to you.
Cool, man. Awesome.
I'm gonna send it to you, and for those of you guys who are listening, 2 songs. I'll just say this because I'm not gonna send it to everybody. But Talk by Perfect Circle and Disillusioned. And there's a couple more, but Talk and Dissolution. Go back there, listen to those, and then send me a thank you letter. Those are beautiful songs. Good stuff.
Awesome, man. Cool.
Well,
what shirt are you wearing, man? Wings who?
Oh, I just got this in. This is Kings.
Yeah, Kings. Rock.
Chris Webber, bro. Chris Webber.
I look like I said Wings.
I got a couple jerseys in there. Kings, right? I got a couple jerseys in there, and those jerseys, I got like 3 jerseys I've got over the years for Christmas and stuff, my birthday and stuff, and they're like $100 a piece, right? And I love jerseys, and it's even with the jerseys, it's nostalgia because I was a diehard basketball fan when I was a kid. $100 a piece. You got this one from China. $17.
Did you?
$17. Yeah, it's got to knock it. It's fake. It's not even real. Like it.
That's right. It looks great, man. It's awesome.
Cool.
I'm like you. It's all good.
It took me like 2 months to get it in the mail.
Oh, really? Yeah.
It's worth it a lot more. Just get the imitation for 17 versus paying 100 for the authentic jersey.
We didn't have to know, dude. You didn't have to tell us. It looks perfect.
Yeah. Well, I'm just letting people know if you want a jersey, they're only $17. Don't go online and get you one, man. Heck, come on.
Straight up, yo.
At the corner. Well, bro, let everybody know where they could check out your work, man, and check out your books and check out what you bring to the table.
The books are available through Barnes & Noble and Amazon and almost any book distributor online worldwide, pretty much. So it's kind of hard not to find, even eBay, I think. So anyway, it's the Word of Gnosis and the Aquarian Gospel. Now on Facebook, I do have the Word of Gnosis. It's kind of, I started in 2012, so it's kind of just been like my storefront. So it's not just for the Word of Gnosis; it's for all kinds of spiritual blessings. A lot of Colburn. Colburn's about half the stuff I post on there, and it's also the Aquarian Gospel. Same with the wordofgnosis.com. That's the main site that you can order both books from, the wordofgnosis.com. I also got a book trailer in there that NEXT helped me with, and kind of all things Gnosis for me. I'm building upon what I started. So, hopefully there's many more. I got a lot of things I'm working on right now. That's kind of why I haven't been working on my Facebook page. I'm trying to get some physical things done. T-shirts. I got a clothing line I'm starting. I'm doing car emblems for instead of Jesus fish, I'm doing the Eye of Horus and Know Thyself, and a few other things to kind of help create a movement, kind of push it forward. Because I was all part of the Jesus movement in the 90s. So I learned, and I'm going to use the things that I learned to kind of prosper the Gnosis movement. So it's kind of what I'm doing, man.
What's up, bro? Everybody, make sure y'all support his work. Go check him out and tell him TruthSeekah sent you. Yeah, the whole Jesus.
Yeah, there's a 100% discount for that.
100%. Yeah, it's free. Don't say that. They're gonna send you messages
Signed
rebuking you.
copy.
I've got a whole bunch of the Jesus Fist bracelets in there. A couple of years ago, I bought them. I wanted one because there's like I said, nostalgia. You know.
Yeah, of course.
I wanted one, so I bought a couple packs of them, and I just got I probably got about 40 or 50 of them, different colors.
Cool. Yeah.
Man, and I'll say a story about that right quick. The whole Jesus Fist thing. Like when I got born again, I was going into my freshman year of high school, and I was going to a new school. I moved, and I was just around Christians for the whole summer. Got saved, got born again, and was wearing the Jesus Fist bracelet. Went to school. I went to school, and this girl was like showing me attention the first day of school. Hey, who are you? Blah blah blah. She had a Jesus Fist bracelet on. I had one on too, but I was hanging out with all the druggies and stuff in high school, and then she asked me, what does that mean for you, WWJD? I said, we want Jack Daniels.
Nice.
I was like, nice. And I just took it off. I was like, sorry, Lord. Yeah, man. High school times.
Yeah, I hear you, buddy. I hear you.
But all right, bro. Well, I appreciate you coming on, man, and we'll have to do this again soon, man.
Awesome, man.
Again soon. Great conversation. Almost 3 hours, bro.
I know. What's up with that?
That's how long they all should be. But I one of the guests I had on a couple weeks ago, I tried to do at least an hour, and I did like 25 minutes with them, and it was like I was just I didn't have nothing to talk about. It's like, all right, man.
We didn't even get into this stuff. You know what I mean? We didn't even get into it.
We got into a lot of it, man. We touched on a little bit of everything.
Seriously, it'll change your life.
The Colburn. Yeah, no, I haven't even heard of that book until you told me.
Copy by Marshall Masters. There's only 2 of them in the world, so one's 100, one's 40. And you know why I love the Gospel of Clady? Because when it states in here that when the disciples couldn't stay awake when Jesus was in the garden, they were all drunk from the wedding they were at. It's interesting. It makes sense. It does.
Watch and pray.
It's all cool,
they can never stay awake.
I know, right?
I will say this though, because I tie these together. I've talked about it a couple times. The fact that Jesus is always going away to pray, hours on end, right? What is he doing during that prayer time? And then we see the first time that like a camera goes in there with him to see what he's doing when he prays. And it's was it James, John, and Peter, I think it was, to the Mount of Transfiguration, where he's going up on the mountaintop to pray. They came with him. So we have someone to kind of write down what they seen. He starts communicating with Moses, and Elijah appeared to him out of a cloud, and his face changed and his clothes changed, and he like transfigured in front of them. And I think that was going on every time he went away to pray. We don't have no reason not to think that, Well,
just like the 40 days in the desert.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I always said, well, who was out there writing for him? Because he was never first person, I guess, in his writings.
Well, there's this notion too. I don't really ascribe to it, but they say that Satan wrote a lot of Genesis. It's written from the perspective of this reptilian being in the water, watching Yahweh create everything. Like the earth was formless and void, and I guess the water or the darkness was here. I don't know. But they say that Satan transcribing is watching Yahweh create land mass and put humans in it. And so this entity has written it. I don't believe that, but are people who approach it from that angle. Yeah.
Yep. That's deep, man.
Interesting stuff out there.
Another time.
Yeah, it's some interesting ideas. I like to touch it, man, and just kind of. Who knows though? We don't know. You know?
Yeah, no,
So,
we don't. We don't.
So
Actually, I'm okay with the serpent because I like this winged serpent, Quetzalcoatl. From the Mesoamericas. I'm all about him. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to figure it out. I'm reading a lot on it. And actually, my trip to Chichen Itza, supposedly, NEXT is going to reveal a lot of things to me. So maybe after I get back from Mexico, we can hook up again in December or January. And
yeah, he's a cool dude, man. He's a cool dude. We were supposed to do some stuff together, but we never did. But he stays really busy.
Yeah. Well, maybe soon then. He's the modern Indiana Jones, man. He's just awesome. He's like you, man. I class you guys the same. He's doing some cool stuff, man. He's doing a lot of stuff. You know, He comes from hip hop label scene and all that stuff. So you guys have that in common and stuff. So yeah, I really am encouraged, and I'm encouraged by people that grab a couple different things and kind of live life. You know, reaching out and trying to do everything they can. Stroking as many chords as they can.
And just, you know what I'm saying, judging their heart and their intention, being able to feel that it's coming from a pure place. Mm-hmm. That's always plus. Yep. Christy Lee says hello. Christy Lee's watching live. She actually is the one who left this book over here for me to check out. She thought I would like it, so she left your book over here. She's hanging out there. But yeah, everybody's hanging out. They really enjoyed you, and I want you to come back on. So we'll do it again after your trip, maybe, man. Let's do it. We had a really good discussion here. I enjoyed it.
Definitely, man. It's been awesome.
All right, brother. You have a good one, man. Blessings and shalom.
You too, Derek. Bless you, brother.
All right, peace.
Talk to you soon.
Later. Tait Zinszer, ladies and gentlemen. Go check him out. Check out his books. Some really cool stuff in there. The Aquarian Gospel, Jesus the Christ. Word of Gnosis. It's so funny. Like you had like-minded people. That this podcast was enjoyable. Good. Well, I've had some good guests on here lately, but it's better. I like even at the end, like just being able to be a dude at the end and just talk about music and talk about things that we like. I love that too. I love just having a lot in common with people and being able to go many places where it doesn't all have to be spirituality, doesn't all have to be Bible or all Jesus or whatever the case is, but we can talk about music, we can talk about art, video games, whatever it is, man, you know, and just be okay with it. So yeah, really enjoyed it. We're right under 2 hours now. Again, thank you guys for listening, hanging out. Thank you guys for all the support. Thank you, Tait, for being a supporter. He's a patron as well. Thank you. It means the world that I have people that believe in me, you know, and who are able to support for as little as $1 a month, $5, $10, whatever you're able to do. I thank each and every one of you guys for all the support. It really does enable me to do this. Couldn't do it without you. If you would like to support, head on over to patreon.com/TruthSeekah. There you'll find my full discography of music. Working on some new stuff right now. Probably when I get off of here, I'm going to start writing. I've got some more music that I'm working on. And there's unreleased music on the Patreon as well. So you get a lot of cool stuff. Get access to the Thursday night School of the Mystics and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Christy Lee said should say conversation instead of an interview. Yeah, it should. Because you're right, because I get to talk. Like if I'm just interviewing them, then I don't get to talk. And some people come on and won't let me talk, and that kind of sucks when we do almost, hour and a half interview and I can't really talk. I like to talk too, right? I like to kind of get some ideas out or pick their brain, or when I ask a question, I'm able to pull other questions out of it. And I'm like, I'll write it. That's what I'm doing, writing stuff down that I want to go back to that we didn't discuss. And that's why we'll having so much in common, we could just go and go and go. And I was like, let's get back to this. Like we talked about this, we got to finish the story and try not to let too much time pass by before we go back and jump to that those questions and back to the same stories. So it's good stuff. Also, let everybody know who's listening. If you guys want to catch us live, I will be at Shanti Fest in Tallahassee, Florida, September the 22nd. 2018. If you would like to come and see me perform there, it's only $5 at the door. Full day event. We're also doing a live podcast. I believe that I'm going to be interviewing Ja Love, who is the guy who's putting it on. First met him at Furtherfest some years ago, 2015, I think it was, and hit it off there. We've been Facebook friends ever since, and just been a cool person to build with. So I'm going to be interviewing him. I think my people who ride with me, y'all, I got people that's going to meet me out there. Christy Lee will be doing some guided meditation and group healing after the yoga session in the morning. So I got a bunch of people coming up there to meet me, and Chris is going to be there, and Nicole. Y'all be prepared to do an interview. I may have to interview one of you guys because he said he may be a little bit too busy because he's setting up the event, and for him to sit down for an hour may be almost impossible. So be ready, be on call to do an interview. Maybe both of you guys. I may interview both of y'all or something, man. You know, we may do that. If I can get enough microphones and find out how to record it. We're going to do it. This will be our first live podcast. We'll be at the event. So the podcast is at 3:00 p.m. and then the concert is at 9:30 p.m. So $5 gets you all that, and a full day of yoga, hippies, dancing, music, glass blowing, all kinds of cool stuff. Ready to meet some of you guys too. So also, November the 2nd, right now, we're planning something at the Lacey House. It's going to be in Mobile, Alabama. It's the same place that I did my album release party. So we're going to be doing another concert event there. So if you guys would like to get info on that, it should be up on my website, TruthSeekah.com, and stay updated on all that cool stuff. So all that being said, I'm going to say peace and shalom. Thank you guys for everything. Really enjoyed this. You guys are awesome.
Your way so much higher than mine, so much higher than mine, so much deeper than mine, so much deeper than mine.
Well, that does it for this episode, folks. To hear more episodes of the TruthSeekah podcast, head over to TruthSeekah.com. And if you're wanting to support the show and get rewards, go to our Patreon page at patreon.com/TruthSeekah.